Unified School District Board of Trustees meeting Wednesday, May 23rd, 2018. The board adopted a resolution to honor our classified employees, and this week is Classified Employees Week, so we honor and appreciate our valuable classified employees. We have emerged from closed session, and where the board approved the closed session minutes, and we also have 5.4, 5.5, and 5.6 expulsion hearings. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the expulsion hearing recommendations for case 1718-5, 18-6, and 18-7.
And I second those.
Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Passed 5-0, and the advisory vote. We also discussed the superintendent's evaluation process. Yes, go ahead.
And just for the record, I'd like to comment that items 5.2 and 5.3 on the closed session agenda were deleted as not needed at this time.
Thank you. And at this time, Emily Green will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just noticed as we were doing the pledge that the black ribbon from the previous school shooting was still on the flag, in equivalent of lowering the flag, and it is unfortunate that it is appropriate again this week due to the recent school shootings.
Thank you, Bob, for that acknowledgement. Item 8.0, are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda?
Yes, in addition to the closed session items that I mentioned just a few minutes ago, we have a new item to the consent agenda. It would be 12.6B, and that is an overnight field trip request for Amador High School, and we have materials on the back table for the public and copies for the board as well.
Great, thank you very much. So now it's time for everyone to take a quick little break, relax into your chair, and allow the stresses of your day to flow out in our mindfulness moment. So let the stresses flow from your fingers and toes as you focus on your breath. Be in this moment. Be fully present. Mindfully focus on your breath as you deeply breathe in and slowly breathe out. Releasing anxiety, releasing stress, filling yourself with the breath of peace. Breathe in, breathe out. Peace in, stress out. The mindful focus today is unity. When we work together collaboratively with a common vision, such as sustaining a culture focused on excellence and equity with regards to student learning and success, the sky's the limit. Our focus is unity. Thank you. We're going to move on to item 10.0, public comments. I'd like to request when you come to the mic, to please speak directly into the mic so that the public can hear and also so that the recording is clear. Anyone may address the board regarding any item that is within the board's subject matter jurisdiction. If you wish to address the board, please complete a speaker card and give it to the board clerk. This part of the board's meeting is set aside for members of the public requesting to address the board on general items which are not on the agenda, items calendared for action which are not first readings listed in the agenda, and are not items previously referred to committee and not yet returned to the board for action. A speaker is limited to 3 minutes. This agenda item will be limited to 20 minutes. However, we have quite a list of folks, so we'll make sure everybody gets their 3 minutes. Anyone whose name remains on the speakers list at the end of the allotted time will be granted time at the end of the regular meeting. The board will not discuss or take action on any item introduced during this portion of the agenda, as this would constitute an illegal act on part of the board. All right, our first speaker is Rocky Lane.
Good evening, Madam President, board members. I've been asked by the other classified substitute school bus drivers to come before you once again, as I did 2 weeks ago, and to remind you that our interpretation of the memorandum that came out in January is that we are due a raise per hour. Not received that. We have not received any information that says that our interpretation is an error. We have not received any information that says that we're going to get the raise, we're not going to get the raise, or any other acknowledgement. Myself, speaking for the other members, would like to have an acknowledgement, preferably in writing, that says where we stand. School is about to end. Bus drivers are trying to make their way through the summer. Substitutes don't get paid. We'd like to know where that is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Someone from the cabinet will get in contact with you. Hey, Julia Mandersohn.
Good evening, members of the board, board president. I had the great honor and pleasure to attend the graduation of a former student of mine from the University of California, Berkeley 2 weekends ago. Not only was this young lady a 4.0 student, she was a starter for 4 years on the women's softball team. I left that graduation full of joy and optimism. I had the sense that what I have been doing for these past 25 years has been more than just a job, and that perhaps in some small way I made a difference in her life. I mention this because that feeling is in stark contrast to the way I felt after the last board meeting. The comments and tone from the very first celebration moment left me feeling harangued and chastised, although for what, I'm still not clear. Patronized, angry, bullied, disrespected, and yes, at that moment, jaded. If we are not free to state our opinions, even though they may differ from yours, then just close these meetings to the public. Do as you will, and the power of the voters will take over. I resented the comment that I don't know what I don't know. I resented the comment that I am to be pitied because we poor country rubes here in Amador County didn't get all the professional development, talking heads, that the big city folks had to endure. If anyone cares, I have had lots of opportunities for professional development. I've even been that talking head a few times, all courtesy of the California Teachers Association. I feel every teacher, parent, and student that attended and heard the vitriolic diatribe from several of you last meeting are owed a public, thoughtful apology. And a change of attitude would be most welcome. We teachers are proud of what we have here in Amador County, and we should be. We have endured fiscal crises, personnel crises, and natural crises, all with the constant focus of students first. We have forged a lasting and irreplaceable bond with these students and families we have been privileged to know and serve. And we deserve that to be honored, respected, and celebrated. I hope you, the board, will heed what I have said here tonight and reconsider the tone, attitude, and approach you utilize when conflicting opinions arise. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you for your input. Okay, Tony Lindy and Vera Bullard.
Hi, I'm Tony Lindy.
And I'm Vera Bullard.
I might need to turn, there we go. I didn't hear it. And we're here to talk to you about Amador Farm Day. It is our 7th year? I thought it was, yeah, I said 6th. It's our 7th year of doing this, and it is put on for all of the 3rd graders in the county. And we do it for one day, take all the kids, we bus all the kids over to the Plymouth Fairgrounds, and then we have 24 stations where each 3rd grader goes through 8 of them, and they're all regarding different parts of agriculture. And it's with the UC Extension that we're able to do that. We have the Farm Bureau, we have the vintners, we have, I don't know, all the others.
Yeah,
The
RCD,
yeah.
the Farms of Amador, and you.
Right. Right, yeah, well, there's a lot of us. We have a team that puts it on together. So we wanted to just come and present it to you and ask, to let you guys know what we're doing, because some of you don't even know. And it's the last Wednesday of September, and it's an all-day thing. It starts at 9. It goes from, the kids start, the stations from 9 to, Vera has a brochure that tells you all the details. It's from 9 to 1 o'clock. And the kids, we do all the different things there, and then we have a lot of different presentations and presenters from the county that come and do that. So we wanted to invite you guys, is basically what we're here for, to invite you guys to come and see what it's all about. It is very impressive. We have between 350 to 400 kids, and it's just kind of a fun day. But we also had a problem last year with a student that was volunteering, and that's kind of something that we need to present to you guys too. And so, you want me to tell them about?
Well, we have kids from both FFA and 4-H and other agricultural programs come and present and do presentations. And some of the kids that weren't in FFA, because they're able to get that time off and approved through their FFA teacher, but the 4-H kids and some other kids weren't able to get that absence excused. And we just kind of want to put a bug in your ear that it's a really worthy event that they're going to. They're giving 8 presentations back to back that are 20 minutes. So I just, maybe it would be something you guys could consider as an excused absence.
Yeah, I guess the parent had to fight for the student to get and we had to really, as a team, we had to fight for them to be able to get excused for the year, or for the day rather. But it took all year to get that done, and it's kind of sad because they're actually doing more work there than they would be at school, and they're there, working harder than they.
Yeah.
So, and they're teaching, so they're doing a lot. So, is there anything else we missed?
No. Hopefully, see you September 26th.
Yeah, please come. It's very impressive.
Just a quick comment to say thank you very much. Although I didn't make it to Amador Farm Day this past year, or this current year, I saw evidence of it in many of our classrooms, like the day after and several days after. So the learning that the students had there continued on, which was very exciting, and we will definitely follow up with the attendance issue.
Oh, and there is one more thing too about this, is that we have a contest, speaking of evidence afterwards. After the event, each of the kids, it's for 3rd graders, but if there's any combo classes of 2, 3, or 3, 4, those kids come too. So it's the whole class. So we have some 2nd graders and some 4th graders, and some of them are lucky to go twice because they're in combo classes in these small schools.
Sometimes 3 times.
Yeah, there's been 1 or 2, yeah. But we have a contest for the next year's logo. So, and then that logo is put on each of the kids get a knapsack that is given to them that has all the sponsors on it, and it has the logo for that year. And then they also have a banner made, and then we invite that winning students who did the artwork as a VIP the next year. So they get to come again, and that's kind of fun.
And the logo on that poster is the one from this year.
Oh, that's right. That's our new one. So that.
Okay, thank you very much. Hey, Thomas Denny.
I think that's right. Good evening, Madam President, trustees, and Slavinsky. My name is Thomas Denny, and I live in Pioneer. Tonight, I want to speak to you about LCAP priorities going forward and how the funds might be spent. I originally joined the LCAP Advisory Committee as an advocate of arts education in the curriculum because I'm a member of Amador Alliance for Arts Education and an art teacher at a children's art studio for Amador County children after school in Sutter Creek. It's been demonstrated that a public school curriculum, which includes art education for all students, engages students, increases school attendance, and the high school graduation numbers, promotes critical thinking and problem-solving skills in addition to providing other benefits like increased self-esteem. While serving on the LCAP Advisory Committee, I realized that my professional and work experience in social work and case management, in job training, and teaching special education, vocational education, and elementary school would be useful in the work of the LCAP Advisory Committee. As we analyze the LCAP survey results and prioritize the needs of our school district, where 47% of children in Amador County are reported to live in poverty. For those children alone, the Advisory Committee's conclusions that social and emotional needs of students through counseling and support services, technology updates, arts education, attracting and retaining high-quality teachers, and many other items should be given high priority for funding. I believe that the priorities for LCAP spending for 2018 and 19 must be items that are directly related to positive student outcomes and the success of all students at every level of ability, according to LCAP guidelines, as there are many students at every level of ability and important needs in this school district, and not enough money to fund them all in this process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Joe Romo and Linda Daly.
Clock starts now. All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Joe Romo. I have Mrs. Linda Daly here with me as well. We're the co-chair for Jackson Elementary School Site Council. And part of our time this evening is to share a little bit about where we started in the year, where we're at today, and where we're trying to head into tomorrow. And like anything, where do you start? Like any organization, what do we stand for? What are we trying to accomplish? What's our mission? So I want to share with you a mission statement that we derived or we created last year. And again, this really helps us when it comes to our decision-making tree to always set as a check and balance. Are we truly taking action on what it is we're trying to accomplish? So Jacksonville's mission statement. Jackson Elementary School is a nurturing learning community committed to preparing students academically and socially to be college and career ready. We believe all belong, all learn, and all lead to succeed. That's kind of the foundation, right? So once you have their foundation set, what are we trying to do in terms of short-term commitments and short-term accomplishments? So this last school year, we had one goal in mind, and the idea was kind of have that funnel back up to what the district-wide LEA goal was. So as a site, what we're trying to accomplish, and I thought we did a pretty good job of it as well, is students will have 1 to 2 opportunities daily to listen and respond to complex informational and or literary texts at depth of knowledge levels 3 and 4, both orally and in writing, and we'll have opportunities to use technology. So just kind of set the groundwork. That's where we started the year. Linda's going to go ahead and share a little bit about what we've been doing today to accomplish that goal.
Good evening. And we also just want to take the opportunity to thank the board and Dr. Slavensky and all the administration for your support for our site council. We're just so proud of what we've accomplished at Jackson Elementary this year. I know we've seen several board members walking through and been able to kind of toot our own horn, but we made this beautiful flyer that I'll pass out that shows some of our accomplishments this year for site council and for our Just Step program. But you know, with our monies, and we just have an amazing group of a lot of parents like Joe and teachers and other support staff, and we came together, we were able to purchase carpets and easels for every classroom so that every classroom has a gathering center, which supports our benchmark reading program. We were able to provide professional development with Adria Klein, also to support our English Language Arts program. We're so excited. We were able to purchase FOSS kits for every grade level so that the teachers could get right in there and do some really good hands-on science. So we appreciate that very much. Thank you. We purchased 24 iPads this year for our kindergarten and first grade and TK classes for their learning center so they could listen to the benchmark stories. We purchased the accelerated reader license so the kids could take some AR tests and get them excited about reading. And then finally, we also purchased Chromebooks so that we have 5 carts at our school. Now all of our carts are up to 30. And thank you very much. I got 6 beautiful Chromebooks for my reading intervention program. So thank you very much. I'm going to pass this out while Joe ties it all up.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. Thank you, Linda. So it's interesting, Mr. Denny mentioned in terms of the LCAP just now.
Joe?
Like 10 seconds?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll kind of just wrap it up. Thank you very much for kind of listening to us. We really appreciate it. And where we're trying to go going into next year, new goals are set under the leadership of Mrs. Barb Magpusau. We're really heading in the right direction, and we appreciate the opportunity to share our story today. Thank you.
Thank you. Lally Sequeira.
Hello, my name is Lally Sequeira, and I'm the County Office of Ed Opportunity Teacher at Jackson Elementary. Here I taught kindergarten. I've been there for 3 years, and I just wanted to come tonight to express my gratitude to Barb, the board, and Dr. Slavinsky for all the support I received while teaching this year. I think I had a very successful year. A lot of that is because I was offered professional development. And as a teacher, it's your choice sometimes whether you want to accept the professional development offered or not. I decided that I wanted to take every opportunity that was provided to me, and I utilized that to do an excellent job implementing benchmark, and I'm pretty confident that I've produced a great class of kindergartners that are happy and excited about learning, and that's all I wanted to say tonight.
Thank you. Nikki Silveira.
Hello, my name is Nikki Silveira, and I'm a teacher at Jackson Elementary School. The last 2 years I've been with the district and Jackson Elementary. I have been reinvigorated with the quality professional development offered to us. These classes, cohorts, collaborations have revitalized my love for teaching. It's something I was lacking at the previous districts I was at, and so it made me really happy to be able to take part in it here. have revitalized my love of teaching with increasing rigor and in-depth pedagogy, guided reading, writer's workshop, framework-driven math talks, and struggle problems. I've seen in my kinder and TK classrooms the level of expectations rise, and along with them, our student achievement. This is something I think we can all be proud of. The opportunities given by the district in the areas of professional development for teachers here in this district since Dr. Slavinsky has joined us have been inspiring, necessary, and long overdue. These teachings aren't necessarily new, as any teacher here can tell you, but they are a reminder, a support, a best practices approach to teaching our students. I'm honored to be part of this school and district for their commitment to our students' future and our profession. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on to 11.0, presentation and recognitions. 11.1, recognition of student board members. Lauren and Vanessa. I think we're going to move to the front.
Yes, thank you, President Susan and school board. Come on over here, please. We had the pleasure this year of, for the first time, welcoming student school board members to be part of our governing board, and it was quite a pleasure. I know Amy and Susan are gonna speak about that, but we had great representation from Independence High School. Eric Dennis couldn't be here tonight because he's actually graduated and moved on, but we will definitely contact him. We have Lauren Armstrong from Argonaut High School and Vanessa Christofferson from Amador. They've done just a great job. So tonight, I asked Susan and Amy to present them with their Vanessas.
While they're opening their boxes, I'll just make a few comments to support what Mr. Vicari said. Our student board members have played a key role, as our board knows, in many of the decisions and actions and work that has moved forward this year. Most recently, the board policy on dress and grooming stemmed directly from their feedback and their leadership. And then I also just want to acknowledge Board Member Laurent and Board Member Thompson, who served on a subcommittee of the board, if I remember correctly, to work closely to craft that board policy, that new board policy on student board members. And so without their work and the full board's work and our fabulous 3 student board members, we would not have accomplished nearly as much as what we did this year. So I'm very proud of them, very excited to hear what comes next on your journey.
So what we have for them tonight, we have these silver stars that are paperweights, and they say 2017-18 in appreciation of service student board members. So they can take these on to college and put all their papers so they don't scatter away. So, very much. You're welcome.
Okay, 11.2, Block A presentation. Mr. Vicari.
Thank you, President Susan. Tonight we have a number of community service Block A's, pins, and actually a couple keychains in our recognition part of the board meeting. In no particular order, I'd like to welcome, if she's here, Abigail Lehman. Are you here today? Okay, Abby isn't here, but let's give her a hand. She 135 hours of community service. Next we have Kylie Doherty. Congratulations. 136 hours of community service Kylie will receive. She's from Argonaut High School, her Block A tonight. Make sure we got this. You assisted the junior cheer program at camp. Okay, set up, clean up, and volunteered for 2 raffles. Worked for the Jackson Lions Club, and assisted with basketball playoff snack bars. So in this is your community service A, and once again, congratulations. Elizabeth Reeby, I don't see Elizabeth out there, but 140 hours of community service, so let's give her a big hand. Kate Buckley, Kate here, 140.25 hours of community service. Give her a big hand from Argonaut High School. Mr. Brett Bonini, are you here tonight? There he is. Congratulations, Brett. All right. Brett has accumulated 145 hours of community service to receive his community service Block A from Argonaut High School. He's a senior. He's going to be going to UNR next year, correct? So Brett worked for the Jackson Lions Club fireworks stand, did yard work, and was a handyman. I didn't know that. Really? That's good. That'll come in handy. Umpired and did stuff for the Lions Club. So Brett, congratulations. That's great. All right, thank you. Next, from Argonaut High School, we have Lolo Mantanatoa-Winopoba. Hi, Lolo.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. Lola will receive her community service Block A, 147 hours of community service as the athletic commissioner of Argonaut High School. Correct?
Yes.
All right, great. We'll see you at graduation next week. You're welcome. Next, from Argonaut High School, Madeline Hale-Monnier, 147 hours of community service. How are you? So included in those 147 hours, you worked at Chaucer's Little Big Time Spring Dance? No? Here's it all? Okay, it does?
It's okay.
It is okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, tell us
The
what
rest is right.
The rest is right? Nerds projects for local groups?
That's not right, but that's okay.
Okay. Worked at the state capitol 48th annual Native Americans Day? Didn't do that either, huh? Okay.
Nope. But
Okay, well, anyway, 147 hours of community service. You did a great job. Okay? I do have to say that we receive these from the school, so don't ask me how that goes south. I have no idea. So, like, I didn't know Brett Brusatori or Brett Bonini was a handyman, but that's okay. Holly Noguchi. Holly? Holly. How are you? Okay. Holly has worked and accumulated 162 hours of community service. Correct? You moved
Well, pretty sure.
You moved firewood for the senior firewood project.
Okay.
But that's not you either? Okay, clean and assemble displays at the county fair?
Yes.
Okay, assisted judges with putting up ribbons and run errands? Yeah. Okay, that's great.
I don't know.
Here's your Block A. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's great. Brittany Hanna. So Brittany Hanna, let's give her a hand. 170 hours of community service. Argonaut High School. Madison Porta. Are you here tonight, Madison Porta? Madison will receive her Block A from Amador High School, 207.5 hours of community service. Congratulations. Nicole McNeil. Nicole? Okay, Nicole, 215 hours of community service, and she is from Argonaut High School, so let's give her a big hand. So I know Emily Green is here, so Emily, come on up. You have achieved 256 hours of community service. Congratulations. And you did that while coaching the Argonaut Junior Mustangs cheerleaders, correct? That is great. Congratulations, you got it right. And we'll see you at graduation next week. All right, thanks. Landry Agee is next. She couldn't be here tonight, competing in softball for Argonaut, but let's give her a hand. 260 hours of community service. Same with Lauren Davis from Argonaut High School. Lauren has accumulated 300 hours of community service, and tonight she would receive her Block A, and there's also a pin in here for her. So next, we have Carson White. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Tonight, we're going to recognize Carson White, 543 hours of community service. Okay. So, in doing that, she worked Farm Bureau, Festival, Hellwig Softball, Parade of Lights, Elks Lodge, Ag Booster Dinner, Team Leader, Barn Setup and Paint, Fair Ribbons, Corporate Sponsor Dinner, For Fire, Second Generation Cattlemen's Association, Little Pigger Dinner. Okay, that's very important. And tonight, she will receive a very special award, a keychain and a pin, because you already have your Block A. Congratulations. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vicari. Okay, we're going to move on to 12.0, the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'd like to request that we pull item 12.1 for separate discussion and vote.
Do I have a second for that motion to move 12.1 from the consent agenda?
Second.
Okay, so we'll move forward with that. We'll move 12.1. All in favor of that? Moving 12.1 for a second discussion? Aye. Okay. Move by. Okay, let's take it again. Advisory vote, yes. 2 for advisory and 5 board members. So now should we a vote to approve the consent agenda minus 12.1?
So I move we approve the consent agenda minus item 12.1.
Second.
Okay. I'll call for the vote. Advisory vote. Board vote. Unanimous. All right, now we will now have a discussion on 12.1, the minutes from the board meeting. Mr. Laurent.
Okay. There are a couple of things that I think should be corrected in the minutes. First, my comments under celebration 10.0. Listening to the recording, I don't find anywhere that I stated that Dr. Slawinski should have made more of an effort to accommodate my schedule. So I would request that that be rephrased or stricken. Second, under public comments, when Heidi Galvez spoke, there's a note here which is a follow-up and was not presented at the meeting itself. And while I understand it's legal to include notes, I think it's inappropriate for us to include things that didn't actually happen in the meeting in our minutes. So I'd like to request that that be stricken. Item 12.2, where it says no advisory votes in favor of the motion, I'd like to suggest that that be rephrased to no advisory votes cast or no advisory votes. You've got another phrase down here somewhere for no advisory votes, because this way it sounds like to me it sounds like the student board members didn't indicate agreement with it, and they weren't here to indicate one way or the other. And the last thing, I'm not sure whether this really belongs with minutes or somewhere else, is at the close of our agenda, it says any writings or documents that are provided to the governing board in open session will be made available for public inspection at the meeting or at the Amador County Public Schools District Office located at 217 Rex Avenue, Jackson, California, during normal business hours. I believe that one of our public speakers last time gave a copy of her remarks to the board president, so I think it should fit under that category or be included with the minutes.
Is there any other discussion on this, Rosie?
Oh, I don't know if I should put this on to when we
We're having a discussion about the minutes.
okay. Well, this was a comment made in it, but
Is it in regard to the way it was recorded?
well, it's in regard of Dr. Slavinsky not making an effort to accommodate his schedule. I don't know. I had the secretary make all our schedules up. Kind of, I don't know. What a one-on-one, and she scheduled me on a boardwalk when there was no school. But it wasn't Dr. Slavinsky.
I don't believe that I actually mentioned Dr. Slavinsky's name in my comments. I believe I referred to the process not having been successful, regardless of which warm body did or did not make mistakes or.
And I just want to add that we did have legal look at the minutes, and everything was appropriate, and it was not appropriate to add comments from speakers that spoke on items not on the agenda to include that with the minutes. We checked legally on that. So,
should we stop saying at the end of our agenda that we will make things handed to the board publicly available then?
Well, it's something we can certainly consider.
I'll be happy to chime in here too. In looking at the small print at the bottom of the minutes, the bottom of the agenda, it says to be made available, in the superintendent's office or at the district office, and we do that, and we can certainly continue doing that.
So the speaker's comments from last time are available in your office if somebody had stopped by today?
I would have to double check that, but I can certainly make every effort to make sure that that happens.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I may sound a little grumpy. I've got allergy problems, plus I'm trying to speak up for the microphone. So I'm not actually grumpy. It's just...
So can we just recap the corrections you would like made, Bob?
Sure. I would like the comment where it says that I said Dr. Slavinsky should do something. Stricken is probably the simplest solution. I would like the note referencing Heidi Galvez's comments to be stricken. And I'd like the no advisory votes in favor of the motion recognizing Classified School Employees Appreciation Week to be no advisory votes cast or some such similar phrase.
Okay, what is the thinking of the rest of the board and his requests? Jan, do you have an opinion?
I always think I'm loud and you can all hear me. If Bob feels, we have a recording, if he feels that you did not mention Dr. Slavinsky's name, you have every right to request that it be stricken. I don't recall the other things. I'm fine with them. 12.2, the end of it, that's actually, to me, it looks like it's basically just a correction to grammar, because it does look like we did not have student advisors here. And it looks like, almost like they made a negative vote. And they weren't here to vote at all. So the advisory vote is the moot point. So.
I don't quite understand the Heidi Galvez thing. What is that, Bob?
Okay. In the public comment section, the last speaker was Heidi Galvez, and following the summary of her comments, there is a note that is correct but was not stated at the meeting. And in my mind, minutes ought to reflect what actually happened at the meeting, not what happened after the fact. And I understand that the legal advice is that it's permissible to do that. This is not something we have done before in our minutes, and I would rather not start this practice.
I would just add that it's a parenthetical note, and because it's a parenthetical note, it indicates by using that structure that it was not stated in the meeting. And in moving forward, we'll be sure to make those statements in the meeting so that they can become a matter of record.
Well, I guess if we make those modifications, it all sounds good. I need to call for a motion that we approve these corrections.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Advisory vote, 2, and board vote, 5. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to 13.0, discussion action items.
Excuse me, Madam President, I thought 13.0 was the consent agenda.
That was 12.0. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong agenda. I'm looking at the minutes. Sorry.
Thank you. I was the one looking at the wrong
I think we are
agenda.
right.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, 13.0.
Okay, 13.0, discussion action items. I have no cards, so I don't, is there anyone who's interested in speaking to these items? All right, seeing none, hearing none, I'm going to move on to 13.1, annual board self-evaluation tool, discussion action.
All right. Annually, as you all know, the board engages in a self-evaluation process, and so I'd like to take a few minutes to introduce this item by talking about a California School Boards Association lighthouse study that is done in collaboration or directly related to this process. Is there a question? One more, okay. And so the PowerPoint is coming to the board right now, and I'm going to hand these over to Mitzi in case there are any members of the public also who would like to follow along as we move through this. I'm going to move through this pretty quickly. The purpose of this board item or agenda item today is really to give the board an opportunity to look at and discuss the possibility of using a new tool for their annual board self-evaluation process. So I'm going to take a few minutes to just review the Lighthouse Study research, which is connected directly to the work of school boards. Talk a little bit about understanding the roles, professional learning for boards and educational leaders, and of course the annual board self-evaluation purpose and process itself. So this is a very important quote. I'd like to take a moment to read it aloud. The linkages between school boards and teaching and learning are often misunderstood. School boards do not directly cause student learning. However, it would appear from the finding of the Lighthouse research, as well as the work of others, that the beliefs, decisions, and actions of school boards directly impact the conditions within schools. that enable district efforts to improve achievement to either succeed or fail. We've heard comments and conversations about that even this evening. And so, once again, the work of the board is so important and directly tied to student learning and student achievement. Through the California School Boards Association's review of the Lighthouse study, their approach was to review the research, review the existing research specifically on school boards, and to connect that research to school boards by examining the way the boards impact the conditions supporting these factors. And the 6 conditions that they looked at were these: vision and goals, balance between district goals and site-level autonomy, the use of data, the plan for leadership transitions, investing in professional capacity, and general district-wide culture. Also back on the table are pamphlets for our strategic plan, and I think it's so great because a little over a year ago we engaged in the strategic planning process, and that what resulted from that continues to guide and provide the overarching umbrella for our local control accountability plan work. And so one of the many roles of the board is to set the system-wide vision and goals, and you've done that through our strategic planning and LCAP process. Another role of the board is to support data use for continuous improvement. Another role is to support data use among leaders. So our leaders are no longer just plant managers. They do a lot of plant management, making sure that everything is functioning and working and the school is safe. But our school leaders and many other leaders are also very much instructional leaders. And so one of the roles of the board is to support data use among our leaders. Another role is looking at aspects of a positive culture. The ongoing work of building trusting relationships, promoting shared responsibility, promoting the belief that all students can learn and that schools can have an impact, promoting an inclusive and productive community partnerships. Another role of the board is to invest in professional capacity, knowing that teacher capacity directly impacts student outcomes and principal capacity directly impacts school staff development, which in turn directly impacts effective school-level instruction. And a bonus is, of course, happy teachers, hardworking teachers, and teacher retention. Another role of the board is supporting capacity. We've talked about that. One of the things that often happens in the work of school boards and staff is role confusion. And so I want to talk just a minute about role clarity. Effective boards spend the bulk of their time discussing policy rather than administrative details. They also engage in the hiring and evaluation of the superintendent. The power of asking questions is seen in every one of our board meetings. We just saw that happen. So whenever we have discussion action items coming to the board, it's the board's terrific opportunity to ask important questions, get the answers to those questions so that they can make the right decisions on behalf of the students and families that we serve. This is a chart that the California School Boards Association has provided for us in recent years, and it also helps us to better understand the roles between the school board and staff. So the yellow circle of the Venn diagram demonstrates the role of the governing board, and the arrow going down on the left-hand side means that they determine the what of our work. And the darker blue circle of the Venn diagram represents the work of staff, administration, staff, classified certificated staff, to develop and implement action plans, to evaluate those action plans, to do ongoing progress monitoring and make changes as needed. More of the skill-driven operational work that happens on a day-to-day basis in our schools and offices. And so it's staff that determines the how once the board has determined the what. So I wanted to share this just to add a little bit of clarity to the various roles that we have. Another function, very important function of the board, is to not only support professional learning, but to engage in professional learning. And our board does a wonderful job of that by attending regular trainings through the California School Boards Association, other professional associations, and then we also set up periodic retreats and workshops and professional learning. We have one coming up on August 8th. As a matter of fact, the contract with Dr. Anthony Muhammad that the board approved at the last meeting. And then we come to the annual board self-evaluation process, which is what we really want to talk about here. The purpose, and this is pulled directly from the board bylaw 9400. The purpose is to demonstrate accountability to the community and to ensure that district governance effectively supports student achievement and the attainment of the district's vision and goals. So I believe President Susan mentioned this earlier tonight already, direct connection of the work of the board to supporting student learning and student achievement. The process, and again, these words were taken directly from that same board bylaw, is to each year determine an evaluation method, to set goals, define and/or refine protocols and establish priorities, and to develop strategies for strengthening board performance based on those identified areas of need. So in your board packet, you have a copy of the annual board self-evaluation tool that has been used in recent years, and you also have one that is coming forward as a recommendation. President Susan and I had some conversation about it, did a little bit of research, consulted with other professionals in the field, and this tool is coming forward as a recommendation. So this is an opportunity now for our board, for you to have some discussion about those two tools and make a determination about how you would like to proceed.
Thank you, Superintendent Slavinsky. So I will put it out to the board for any comments or discussion regarding these two tools that are presented in our packet tonight.
I like the proposed new one in most regards, significantly better than the old one. However, our goals for last year were to improve scores in the old one. So I'd like to recommend that we complete both the old one and, if a new one is accepted, the new one, so we can see whether we met our goals or not. And then use whatever new one we adopt, if we adopt a new one, going forward.
Well, that's an interesting perspective. I think that the second one is actually overlaps the first, but just in much more specific terms. But I certainly have no problem in completing both of them. What do you think, Janet, Rosie, Andy?
I like the new one. I think you have more to choose from.
It's much more specific.
Yes.
I think that in previous years, discussion about the other model that we were using, that it wasn't as detailed as what we were looking for. So I am excited to see the new one. I think it fine-tunes, our thoughts and feelings better instead of such generalized terms. And I don't remember our goal, but I would have no problem filling out the previous one also.
I agree with you. I have no problem doing both. I like the new one a lot better. It is much more detailed, and I think that's positive, but kind of as a memory evaluation of just going through the process of doing both, I think it's a positive thing for us as a board.
And I have no problem with that either. In fact, it gives us more information with which to create new goals for ourselves, both collectively and individually. So that was easy. All right.
I agree with your comment that the new one is more detailed and overlaps the old one. It's solely for the purposes of being able to tell whether we met our goal or not, that I want to be redundant and do the extra work.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. So I would entertain a motion at this time.
I move that we adopt the recommended new self-evaluation tool starting with this year and going forward, and that one last time we use the old self-evaluation tool so that we can compare with last year's results.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? Advisory vote. In favor? Board, all in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Okay, we're going to move on to 13.2, 2018-19 Special Education Annual Services and Budget Plan. First reading, public hearing and discussion. So this is being presented by Ms. Faulkner.
Good evening. Before I get started, I want to point out a couple of things. And I have to report that the mistakes that I'm going to point out are not mine this time. So if you'll bear with me, I'm going to take you through the process of a few things that I have noticed. First of all, I want to point out that the copy machine has made some mistakes. If you look between page 26 and 27 of your ACUSD handout, you do not have a annual budget plan that has numbers of actual expenditures or planned expenditures. But if you go to the ACOE section, it is in there on page 11. So if you can refer to that section, you will have all the information. It's all turned in at one time. I do not know why it did not print in one section but printed in the other. So that's interesting. So copy machines make mistakes also. The next couple of mistakes I'd like to point out are CDEs, which is a refreshing thing because they're not my mistakes. The first one is at the top of that annual budget plan. You'll see that it says for fiscal year 17-18. After these documents were turned in, I did receive, and we all did in the state, receive an email from CDE, and they put the wrong document up on the website because we get this from their website, and so they just informed us that if we've already started the process to continue with the document and that they would accept it knowing that it should say 2018-19 for next school year. It's a projected budget. And if those documents are up and edited, or if we want to edit these, we can have that conversation before we finalize this at our next board meeting. One of the other things that I do want to point out, if you flip to pages 24, 28, and 29 of that same document, you will see on those pages it references Jackson High School. Those are CDE documents too that we just print for this report. Mrs. Lossage and myself have made contact with various people that we work with at CDE, and nobody has gotten back to us as to why it continues to reference Jackson High School or how that has come about. I did go back about 12 years in our SELPA plans, our annual service plans and budget, and it is that way as well. And I quit after about 12 years in the binder and figured it's going to continue that way if it's back 12 years. Just trying to see if I could find out where the mistake happened. I don't think the mistake has ever been changed. And so that is something that we're exploring with CDE. So I think those might have been questions that came up, so I just wanted to point those out. So we'll go ahead and get started. This is a presentation I bring to you every year. We do this every year, and so I wanted to give you a little bit of background because from one year to the next, I know sometimes it's hard to remember all these items that we bring to you. So the annual budget and service plan, it is a plan that gives assurances that the SELPA brings, and in a multi-district SELPA, we would be bringing this to each school district to show them these are the services that we're going to provide you as a SELPA for a county office of ed. It gives projections of services that we're going to offer, as well as a projection of the budget for the coming year. Like I had stated, this is done every year, and it's submitted to CDE by June 30th. The plan is put up for public adoption and public input every year, and then it comes back to the board for approval. And so this is our public viewing of this document and public discussion. Also, the plan is a plan, and if there are changes to our fiscal year, if there are changes to our service plan, that could be edited throughout the year. So it's a projection of what we plan to offer, and if there's changes fiscally or program-wise, then we can make those as we get into the year and we see what happens in that school year. So some of the requirements of the annual budget are administrative costs, and you can see these outlined in the page 11 ACOE that I directed you to that wasn't in our other ACUSD packet. We have to outline services for severely handicapped and low incidence students. We need to have services for non-severe students. We need to look at supplemental aids and services that we will provide for students in order for them to access the general education. We also look at regional services that we have that our specialists help provide support for. Also in our local plan, it makes reference, and if you remember, the local plan was that big, huge document that we went over earlier in the year. That's at CDE right now, and I've had some conversation. They're getting ready to approve that. So that was the local plan, and it makes reference to how special education and property taxes are related in that plan. The nature of the services and related services that we're going to offer, and the physical location. And those are in those following documents. They have checks, lists past the annual budget as you move through that document. Are there questions?
I think it was item 850, or code 850 is, let me get back to the picture. Is that where workability falls?
I will have to check with you for that. I don't know off the top of my head.
Is this the plan where we should have noticed last year that workability was being?
I am going to check on that. However, workability is a grant, so I would think that it wouldn't be included in this, but I don't know that as a definite. I used to be the regional manager for workability in Northern California for a short period of time before I stepped down when I moved into this position, because I wasn't sure that I had the time to give what was needed. And so it is a grant. During that time, many school districts lost their grant, and that was due to the fact that we have a high expectation now of accountability through CDE. And when we turn in our end of the year reports, we have a rubric system and they're scored. And if you either turn in a report late throughout the year, if you don't meet the rubric standard that is set by CDE, then you go into a probationary period. And if you are not able to recover from that probationary period the following year, then you lose your grant. And while I was running the workability grant, several districts throughout the state lost their grant, and they are not giving them an opportunity to get it back. So I will check on that because I am not absolutely for sure. However, I would be reluctant to think that they would place a grant into these service plans.
That makes sense.
Because it's soft money.
Kind of looking for where we should have noticed that it was being changed last year to this year.
Mm-hmm. What number was that you referenced? I just want to write it down so I could verify.
850 work experience education. That looked like the closest category. But since it's a grant, it's as you say, it's probably entirely separate from this.
Yeah, usually they don't include soft money in these things because soft money can go away. So, but I will double check on that.
Thank you. And isn't all our money soft money these days?
Probably it could be looked at that way, but generally our grants, things that we have to apply for and we don't always know are going to be there.
I have a question. I don't quite understand. So on the checklist pages, some things are not currently utilized, some are adopted. How do you determine those things? well, in 12 and 13 and 14 and
So the way that we determine is we are reporting what we are offering as a SELPA. And so, for example, we do not have a medical service facility in our SELPA, and so not currently utilized basically means it's not something that we're providing to districts within our SELPA. And if you go through, there's also another one, a respite care services. We don't have that in our SELPA. And there are very large SELPAs that do offer those things. They have the clientele for it as well as the funding for it. The expenditures sometimes for these things are beyond what a small district would offer or even have the clientele for. So they're not some things we offer. Now, one of the things that we do, if I can find it real quick. For example, and I have a different version than you do, but if you flip a few pages to the first code on the page is 540 and 545. This is another example. Many districts or county offices of ed have in their district either a non-public school, generally it's a non-public school or non-public agency that offers day treatment services or residential treatment. It's not always the districts, or generally is not, because districts don't run residential treatment facilities, but it's housed in their district. And so depending on the relationship with that, that might be something that is adopted or modified in their plan somehow. And so we do not have that in our district, whether it be a non-public school or a non-public agency. And so those are something, if we were to utilize those, we would have to go out of county. So as far as this refers to what we actually have in our county to offer to our school district, ACUSD. Did that answer your question?
yeah, and is that sort of normal? Is that the average?
I would say for many small counties, that's normal. This is a single, so we're very, very unique in that respect. Generally, I know there's lots of small districts that do not have these within their district. A lot of times you find like a residential facility or a non-public school or non-public agency offered in bigger cities. So there's a lot more offered like in El Dorado County, in Sacramento County, in San Joaquin County, but they're not provided by the school, but they're within their SELPAs. And so how the relationship they have with them is much different. So I think a lot of small counties, they do not have these in their county. Now, to say that somebody couldn't open up shop here, they can, but we don't have that currently.
Thank you. Any other questions? Bob?
I think I misunderstood something in that last explanation. 545 residential treatment services is checked as adopted. But I thought I just heard you say that we aren't using it.
Say that on mine, it says not currently utilized.
Adopted right there. Yeah.
I think it says which copy of this we're looking at.
The one in the COE packet with the budget, it seems to have it checked, and the one in the USD packet seems not to have it checked.
So
It's odd because when I loaded them into the system, I just made one scan and I stuck one in the ACOE and one on the board. So I have no explanation for that, but that is not correct. We do not have a residential facility within our county.
So when you go to submit, can you double check that the check mark hasn't drifted over?
Yes.
Thank you.
And we'll record that in the minutes as well, which is correct and which is not correct.
Thank you.
So, and I'll be happy to come back and I'll review these before you guys actually approve it so that you can see that it's accurate. No idea, but thank you for pointing that out.
Gremlins in the copier.
I'm going to blame it on the copy machine, too.
Yeah,
I would too.
Are there any more questions for Mitzi? Okay, well then I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. The public hearing is now open on the Special Education Annual Services and Budget Plan. Is there anyone who would like to speak to it? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, I'm closing the public hearing. Thank you. Moving on to 13.3, Spyglass Telecommunication Cost Recovery Agreement. Mr. Critchfield.
Thank you very much, President Susan, board members, and Dr. Slavinsky. I have an opportunity tonight to present quite a bit of savings for the district when it comes to telecommunications. As you know, we have numerous school sites in our school district, and through the years of changing phone lines, changing classrooms, going through everything, and not having a direct point person in the district overseeing when it comes to telephone lines, we have incurred many charges that are in excess of what we should be paying. We worked with Spyglass Company, which specializes in this for school districts, because this is a very common thing in school districts, and they went through a very intense audit of all of our telecommunications setups, and were able to identify hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings. The agreement that would take place if it were approved tonight is they would be seeking retroactively savings of $405,000. The agreement would be that Spyglass keeps half of that and the other half remains with the district. Ongoing savings for future annual savings, they've identified $203,000 per year that we would save. They would then capture that first year's savings, and then moving forward, we would capture the savings in the years to come. And so, as you can see, this is an abbreviated version of their findings. The actual spreadsheet they sent me was hundreds of pages of everything that they found. To summarize, it has to do with phone lines that were active that are no longer in use, was one of the biggest offenders for being overcharged, and then not being charged the correct rates, where AT&T was charging us the local rate versus the government rate. And that could be on a particular phone line, and so it would be very hard to identify with the small staff we have to see where we're being overcharged and where we're not. And so they went through it line by line to identify where we were being overcharged. It's a lot of money. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just want to make sure that I understand it correctly. Spyglass is a company that has audited our telecommunications. They're not a telecommunication company.
Correct.
That we're going to switch. They're just auditing to save us money.
Correct.
So those are the savings. So in order for us to, I mean, they've already pointed out all of our savings, and in order to do that, we have to pay them $202,000.
So this is how it would work. The board, if the board were to approve this tonight, we would communicate with Spyglass, and then they would move forward in recapturing the savings. Any back payments on past overcharges that we receive, once we receive the rebate, we would pay them half. But we don't pay them until we receive that rebate. On future bills, anything they're able to capture in the first year, once that savings is realized, we would pay them. So this is the hope that they're able to get all of these rebates back. It's possible that they do not recover all of this money, but it would be, what they've identified would be up to $405,000 in overcharges for past years, and anything that they are able to realize. And they would do all the legwork with AT&T and the various companies to realize those rebates and savings, but because we are on the bill, the rebates would then come to us, and once we receive the rebate, we would pay them half on the back payment, if that makes sense.
It does. And then moving forward, obviously that would all be corrected and we wouldn't need to pay them anything further, correct?
Correct. And I've talked to Scott Nolan about this, and we're going to work on putting a plan in place to make sure that these things don't happen in the future. I mean, we're talking like phone lines from 20 years ago, things like that have been going on that it just when things change so often and you go through this, it's just not, and AT&T is not going to call us to say you're not using your phone line. So that's our responsibility.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Bob, did you have something?
Yeah, so they've already performed the audit, and then if we go with their proposal, the anticipated savings is what's outlined here. Is that
Correct.
And what did we pay them for the audit itself?
Nothing. That's how it works for them. They do the audit to show us what they would save, and then we would move forward with any payment. So we have not paid them anything up to this point, and we won't until we realize any savings or rebates.
Okay, so the thing you signed in January was the authorization for them to do the audit?
Correct.
And we're now looking at a contract here in May or whatever month we're in?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it took them a couple months to do the audit.
That seems reasonable. It was another one of those where I was looking at a January signature and a May board meeting. It was
Absolutely, yeah, and that's why it wasn't brought forward to the board in January. There wasn't any financial obligation at that point. We just felt like it was our administrative duty to move forward and look into it and see if there would be savings, and there are a lot of savings.
Can they do a similar thing for our outgoing call system to see if we can save money on that or get increased functionality on that?
Outgoing call system in what sense?
The automated calls, there's a brand name that you guys used, InTouch system.
I did not discuss that with them. InTouch is a separate company, and that is not, that is a contract that works through our current systems, is my understanding. And so that is, I don't know if they would be able to perform that. I can ask them to, but I can let you know.
It falls under telecommunications in my mind.
It does, yeah, but it's a web-based program that we have a subscription to that then works through, and it communicates directly with Aries to get all the information that then when a call is made or an email is sent out is pulled and goes that way. So it's a little bit different than being charged, for a phone line, things like that.
That makes sense.
Okay, great. Any other questions? All right, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the Spyglass telecommunication cost recovery agreement.
And I'll second it. I'll call for the advisory, any more discussion? Okay, I'll call for the advisory vote. Are we in favor? 2 in favor? Okay. Board vote, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
And it passes unanimously. Thank you for your good work. Okay, 13.4, service agreement with Gigi McNerlin. Mr. Critchfield?
Yes, as you know, a few months ago, the board approved a contract to have Doug Green provide these same services for state-certified bus drivers, being an instructor. As we know, Doug Green, we loved him dearly, and he was a great employee here. He's retired, and his schedule is not always working out perfectly to be able to work with us, and I don't blame him one bit. He has that right to go fishing and do other things and work around, and so this is someone that our transportation department has researched and is willing and available to work with us so that we can get more bus drivers trained and more sub-bus drivers trained. So it's a very similar agreement to what was approved with Doug Green, but it is a different provider, Gigi McNerlin, and she has all the same authorizations and everything necessary to provide the appropriate behind-the-wheel training and classroom training to certify our bus drivers.
Thank you. Any board questions for Mr. Critchfield?
I just have a question. Being that Mr. Green facilitated this in his role, is there any plans to provide training or whatever the correct education is for either our current director of transportation or perhaps the whatever?
Yeah, we've had discussions about that. We do not have any plans. It is an intense process that can take years to attain, and so at this point we don't have a specific plan for that, but once all the pieces are in place, we will have that discussion.
Okay, I thought we had a behind-the-wheel trainer already. Trainer for...
Charles, you want to help me out here? Charles Knight's here, our transportation supervisor.
Good evening. Basically what we have in place now is a behind-the-wheel trainer. She's an employee of the Unified School District, and she is also going to the instructor course in June. So she'll be able to do both classroom and behind the wheel. Right now she can only do behind the wheel.
That's why I had him come here. Thank you, Charles.
Okay, terrific. So any more questions, discussion? Okay, you have a motion.
I move we approve the services agreement with Gigi McNerlin.
Any more discussion? Okay, call for the advisory vote. Are you in favor? 2 in favor. Call for a board vote. All in favor? Aye, passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Critchfield. Okay, item 13.5, ACUSD Sunshine Proposal to CSEA for the 2018-19 school year successor agreement. Mr. Vicari.
Yes, thank you, President Susan. Tonight is the first of the two-part Sunshine proposal from the Amador County Unified School District to California School Employees Association 239. It's a two-part system here. So tonight I would like to ask you to officially accept the proposal and schedule a public hearing for June 13th.
Okay, so we'll take them individually, correct?
Yes, we take them individually. Tonight, accept the proposal and then schedule a public hearing for June 13th.
That would be the successor contract is the public
That is
hearing?
correct.
Okay, all right. So any questions for Mr. Vicari? Discussion? So I'll move that we accept the ACUSD Sunshine proposal to CSEA for the 2018-19 school year successor agreement.
I second it.
Okay, call for the vote. Advisory vote. Aye, 2 ayes. Board vote. Aye. 4. Bob absent from the room.
Thank you. And the second part of that is the CSEA 239 Sunshine proposal to the Amador County Unified School District. It's the same system, so I'd like to ask you to accept their proposal and schedule a meeting or a hearing at the meeting on June 13th.
Okay, any discussion or questions for that? Okay, I move that we accept the CSEA's Chapter 239 Sunshine proposal to ACUSD for the 2018-19 successor contract initial proposal with an upcoming meeting for public hearing. Okay, moved by Susan, seconded by Janet. And I'll ask for the advisory vote. In favor? Yep, 2 in favor. Board vote, all in favor? Aye. 4, with Bob out of the room.
Thank you.
Thank you. 14.0 reports. Illuminate update, Mr. Snyder.
Thank you, President Susan, board members, and Superintendent Slavensky. So in thinking of an Illuminate report to the board, I gave it some thought and decided rather than have me stand here and tell you how it's being used in classrooms, it might be better to have classroom teachers come and tell you how they're using it each day in their classrooms. So I'd like to start with the pleasure of introducing Mr. Matt Goff, who's going to start us off with how he's using it in his high school classroom. So we'll start with Mr. Goff.
Good evening, board, Dr. Slavinsky, student board. Just have something to pass out to you. So I just wanted to quickly review what Illuminate was and then how we use it in the classroom. I'll be talking about how we use it in the high school classroom. I need to do this. Okay. So Illuminate is a data management system. I believe we purchased it as a district a couple years ago. We're on the kind of the year 2 of it, coming to the end of it. It allows teachers and administrators to access student demographic data, similar to what you can access in Aries. But then it also gives teachers access to student assessment data as well. In the classroom, what teachers can do is use Illuminate to give formative assessments to kind of see the progress that students are making and assess how well they're learning the content. And then also give summative assessments, kind of like end of quarter, end of term assessments. And then you can also analyze student data if the data is uploaded to Illuminate, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So one thing you can do is give formative assessments, and what that is called in Illuminate is called on-the-fly assessments. And these are pretty good for using, assessing students for, say you assigned a homework assignment. When they come into the classroom, you can give them an on-the-fly assessment just to see how well they internalize that content, or if you present information to them during the class, you can use that as an exit ticket for them to kind of take the assessment. And then you as a teacher can assess to see where your class is. What did they learn? What did they not learn? What do I need to go over? What have they mastered? You can also use them for quizzes and then also for reviewing content as well before the big test. The way that works is I've given you an example. So each kid, when you log into Illuminate, each teacher has an access to each student. And so you can print out however many questions you want. This one has 5 questions. You can have 10, 15, 20. It's up to you, depending on how much you want to hurt your kids and make them aggravated. But then they fill out the assessment, and then you use a document camera or the webcam on a Chromebook, whatever you need to use. They just hold it right up in front of the Chromebook, and it grades it like that. And so you have instant results, which is one of the best things about Illuminate. You can also administer assessments online, and what's really changed in the last couple of weeks is our access to Illuminate's secure browser. So if you were going to give an assessment in Illuminate online previously to the last week, it would open it up in a Google tab, but it would not lock the browser on the Chromebook. So students, theoretically, not our students, but students theoretically could just open up a new tab, Google the answer, and then go back to the question. So it was not effective, but I was able to use... Oh, the students are smiling. No, I'm just kidding. But we have a secure browser now. So what that means is it's very similar to the CASP browser. So when the students take the CASP exam, their whole browser is locked. Can't do a search. You're locked into that. So you have to answer the question. You can't go around looking. So this is what, this is my photo from my camera, so it's a little crude, but that's what students see on the secure browser now in Illuminate. So it takes up the whole screen, and then you see the question, you select the question response, and then you go on to your next item. You can also upload the tests to Illuminate, so they would have the test questions there, and then the responses in the next column. So theoretically, if you can give an assignment or a test on the secure browser, you wouldn't have to print anything out. You could just upload the test to Illuminate, preload how many questions there are, what the answer key is, and they could just take the whole test online, which I'm going to be doing starting next year. This kind of gives you a look into what the teacher sees when they're administering an online exam. The most important column is the one on the right, the one that has the links in blue, the hyperlinks, because those give you access to the student exams as they're being taken. So you can see who's taking the exam, you can see what they're responding as they respond to it, because that's the best thing about Illuminate. You're not getting a Scantron that you have to go run through the Scantron feeder anymore. As soon as they give the response, you can see what they're doing. And so this is an example where the green boxes are obviously ones that are correct, the red ones are obviously incorrect, and you can kind of see responses as they're going to kind of see how the students are doing. You can also see by the end how the students have done. You can see what number, the number correct. You can see their student performance band, which the teacher can change. So we have right now district default performance bands, but each teacher can change it for the assessment that they're giving. And then this is how I use it in particular the most. After the assessment, right away, you can see each question, how well the students did. So which questions the students struggled in on the left, and then on the right, you can see the graph increasing to where by the end, all the students are getting those questions correct. And then even more in depth, you can look at each question and see exactly which students selected which responses. So if I look at this, right away, my eye goes to the second one down on question 10, because the correct answer was B, which only 8 students gave, but 25 said D. So right away, I know that question needs to be gone over because 25 students were incorrect and they all thought the same thing, right? So that instantaneous feedback is so important, especially for that instant feedback that you can give them is really nice. So what's next in terms of next steps? Well, because we now have access to the secure browser, I can fairly confidently say that a lot more of teachers at my site in particular will be interested in using Illuminate. I know we've had some teachers using the bubble-in sheet and holding it up in front of the camera, but with a secure browser, you don't have to do that step anymore, and you're going to still get the instantaneous feedback. So training will be necessary to roll this out completely. So that'll be important, because then we can actually start creating, administering assessments, and then getting those assessments online so that we can start seeing those results. And then the last thing that I would recommend is that if Illuminate's going to be our data management system, it would be important if we can get as much data as possible into the system. Right now, Illuminate's mainly being used to house demographic data for students. So if I click on a student, or I search for a student, I can see their demographic data, but I don't really know anything about them in terms of data on their academic performance. So I've listed some categories here that we could possibly consider for Illuminate to upload. And basically, from what I heard, maybe that's not right, but what I heard was any data that's online, Illuminate could bring in. So we could have our CASP data on there. The IABs that we're giving through CASP as formative assessments, we can put those on there. IRLs from RenLearn's STAR test that we're giving at Argonaut, we're giving them 3 times a year. AP data, SAT, ACT data, college and career readiness data, school benchmarks. We could add attendance rates there. So it could be a really viable platform for our data analysis, but we do need to upload more data to it. Questions for me? Okay. All right, that's me from the high school ends.
Don't go anywhere.
Okay, I'll be right.
It's also my pleasure to introduce to you Pine Grove elementary teacher Heather Minton, who will give you the elementary perspective of Illuminate in her classroom. So, here you go.
Good evening. My name is Heather Minton. Like you said, I'm from Pine Grove. And a lot of times in these assessment systems, we go, but what about the little ones? So that's kind of what I'm here to talk to you about, is how I use it in my 2-3 combo class that I have and how much time it saves me. The first thing is skills testing, which we do skills testing. Many of you are probably familiar with the results testing that is done at least K2. Most schools do it K3. I do all of that through Illuminate, and it is saving me so much paper. I don't lose things because all of the information is right there at my fingertips. So that would be the results testing, is that sight words and basic phonics skills test. And in addition to those, if teachers have other things they want to do, they can create their own tests within the Illuminate system. I think that's something that's really important. You're not only limited to what's already there, you can create what you want. So at one point I created math fact tests, so I could just bring one of my kids over, fly through them really quick, and I could tell exactly who had what math facts there. In addition to that, it's on this slide. If you flip to the next slide, shows those 2 reports that I think are priceless. The first report that you see on the left is a sight word page. So these are flashcards. So just based on the tests that I give anyways through the Illuminate system, I simply go over to reports, I click sight words, all of the ones they missed, I print this out, this goes home. Parents now have sight word cards, flashcards for their kids to practice. On the results assessment, the skills assessment results page, that's a letter I send home every trimester when I do the testing with my kids, so that the parents know exactly which words were missed, exactly which words they got, and it's just in an easy layout. It also gives a quick synopsis of what the assessment is, so parents aren't completely lost. This is kind of where I see Illuminate going in the next year or two, with the hopefully adoption of the new report cards that are standards-based, hopefully all the way up the grade levels. It comes with the question of how do we assess that? How do we figure that out? And Illuminate really is the answer to that question. You can create assessments for any standard that you want, give them to your students, and then you can see exactly where they are at with that standard. This is also something that we can create assessments and they can be used across the entire district if that's what we choose. So I could create a 3rd grade test and it just be given to all 3rd grade teachers at whatever periodic time. So you really can see what's going on across the district, which will guide our professional development. Also, we use it for small groups. So if I if I give an assessment, I see that just kind of like what Matt was saying, well, there's all of these kids who missed this exact same thing. I can pull them into a small group. We can look at that data, and I can really focus in on that standard. And the thing that I think is really important about Illuminate is when you do create these tests, it's already tied to standards. You don't have to go in and try to figure out what standard goes with which question. You just pull a report, and it tells you for you. Kind of touched on that one a little bit already, but the data can be shared. So any data that I give a test on, I think Kelly Hunkins at one point goes, wow, you create a lot of tests, and she can go in and kind of see what's going on. So you can really, I mean, Amy can go in and just go, oh, I wonder how third grade's doing, and look at everything. Finally are the student profiles page. Matt talked a little bit about how having all that data loaded into the system is really helpful. The next slide, the way that my formatting was, it's really hard for you to kind of see what's going on that page. Essentially, this is a quick printout. Yeah, it's really tiny. And plus there's student data on there, which we don't really want to share, so I blocked out names and things. So the data that's on there is not as important as being able to give this quick printout, which I didn't have to do any work to put together, this quick printout that I can just hand parents, or that if we're in an SST or some sort of meeting, I can just pull, everybody can pull up this one piece of data on this one student and really look at everything that's there. Are there any questions?
So awesome. Bob, do you have a question? Looks like you do.
Yeah, when you were talking about creating tests, you said that Illuminate already knows the standard that the test applies to. Is that, I assume that's it only if you select a question that Illuminate is familiar with. If you enter in your own questions, I wouldn't expect it to be able to parse the question to determine the standard. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Illuminate comes with a subscription. Illuminate purchased a subscription to a company that creates item bank tests. So I can quickly make a test. I don't have to come up with the questions on my own. I can, of course. It does allow for that, but I don't have to. And when you're creating the test, you can just select all of the standards that you want. And I would imagine if you're creating your own test inside of it, you probably already know the standard that you're looking at when you're creating that.
Is this thing, okay, can I add to that? Okay, so when you make a new assessment, you can link standards to it. So say for instance, I use this a lot in my AP Human Geography class. So say I'm giving a first semester final. I can categorize each question as, oh, this is a population question, this is a migration question, this is a religion question. And so then I can go back and look to see if there are any trends like, oh, my students didn't do very well with population, I need to go back. So it does have the preloaded ones, but then you can add your own standards to the new assessments that you create, which is pretty cool.
And as you preload, if you have, I don't know what file format it likes, but some sort of spreadsheet of question and answer, it is one of the columns for the standard so that you can load that all in at once.
Yeah, you can review it all together. It's like this step-by-step process. It's like standards, questions, that kind of thing. And then by the end, you can just look at it. It's really user-friendly.
I'm kind of picturing using a Pearson test bank, which you're probably familiar with because they're so common, and loading it into this system.
Yeah, I mean, all our collections assessments were preloaded in there. So if we're losing collections in ELA for 6 through 12, those are all preloaded in there, so you can give them.
Great, thank you.
Oh, I just have a question. Does the information that's uploaded into Illuminate, does that automatically link together with Aries, or could it?
Yeah, go for it.
So yes, as soon as they score their test, I can just push a button that says push to Aries, and then as long as I have that assignment already created, those scores automatically populate in Aries without me having to input anything, which is really nice.
And then any type of a parent portal or anything that parents can go in and look at their students' progress?
I do believe that Illuminate does have something like that. I'm not sure if that is a portion that we purchased or not. That's something we would need to look into. I do know that the page that I look at, I can just bring up onto a parent. I could show to a parent, but I also can just do a quick on that page. It says print to PDF, and I just print really quickly and give it to them. So it'd be really simple to get them if we don't have that portion, which I'm not quite sure on that one.
Can look into that.
I do want to just thank you guys so much for the feedback we have. When we purchased it, it looked very exciting, and but we just didn't hear a lot of reports on how it was being used, and so it's exciting to know that it's being utilized. And thank you so much for the ideas on what kind of data need to go into it in order to make it more effective. I think that will help many teachers.
Thank you. And I think Lauren had a question.
It's just a comment on like a student's point of view, because I took his human geography class last year, and we did use it a lot for like when we took tests. And like I know it's also nerve-wracking, but all the kids liked it because usually you have to wait to see what you got on your test, but then you could just show it up and then you see right away, so you don't have to wait. So I know like a lot of the students liked it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Just one other side note, a quick comment. We just for the first time this year were able to do our physical fitness testing through Illuminate. We discovered that was an option that we had available. And instead of paying a third-party vendor $3,500 to produce the reports and process the data, we did it through Illuminate and saved $3,500 for the district this year for that testing. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We just make one more comment over here from a former principal's perspective.
Yes,
who used it a lot.
The CASP data is uploaded on there, and so that's something that we do need to provide more support with so that everyone knows how to do that. But there are a multitude of reports that you can pull on your students, and individual teachers could actually pull those up and look at how their students performed in the prior year to be able to analyze and know where their gaps are and everything else. So all of that is already up there in Illuminate. It would just be providing more support and teaching everyone how to access that information.
Okay, thank you very much. With the board's pleasure, I would like to move 14.3 up before to the elementary report card report up above the LCAP report, because we have a lot of teachers in the room that are ready to present. So with the board's agreement, is that all right? Okay, so we'll move to 14.3 elementary report card report.
Okay, thank you, President Susan, board members, and Superintendent Slavensky. In January of 2018, a committee convened comprised of elementary teachers and administrators with the work of creating or engaging in professional learning and collaboration with a focus on creating new elementary grades TK through 6 standards-aligned report cards. And here to tell you all about it, it's my pleasure to introduce our teacher on special assignment for elementary, Michelle Hansen, and she's just done a fabulous job with this team. So, Michelle.
Good evening. I'm nervous.
Breathe.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Slavinsky, and members of cabinet. Tonight I would like to take you on a walk with me through the process of developing new elementary standards-based, standards-aligned report cards. I will be introducing the amazing members of the committee, giving a brief history of events that led up to the formation of the initiative, explaining the team's purpose and norms. I will describe the countless hours of preparation and learning that took place, as well as an overall view of the entire process with all of the feedback loops. Then I will discuss next steps. Amador County has some of the most intelligent and thoughtful teachers and administrators. And I have been blessed to work with most of them, and this committee was no exception. Our team consisted of administrators, general ed, intervention, and special education teachers. And they are, and not all of them are here, but I am going to say all of their names if you would let me. Amanda Stogner, 3rd grade at Pine Grove Elementary. And if you would stand when I say your name. Bonnie Miller, TKK, Plymouth Elementary. Erica Kantak, 5th grade, Plymouth Elementary. Jackie Holtz, TKK. Oh, Jackie is here. TKK Pine Grove Elementary. Jeannie Jensen, 1st grade, Pioneer Elementary. Julia Mandersohn, Intervention, IONL. Joanne Rutherford, 5th grade, Jackson Elementary. Kelly Churchill, 2nd grade, Jackson Elementary. Lisa Varwig, TK, Jackson Elementary. Sherry Clark, 3rd grade, Jackson Elementary. Amber Neville, Special Education, Jackson Elementary. Lori Carson, Administrator, Pioneer Elementary. Donna Custodio, Administrator, Plymouth Elementary. Cabrina McPartland, 1st grade, Sutter Creek Elementary. Lisa Neville, 3rd, 4th split grade, Plymouth Elementary, with some oversight from Sue Holsey from the Educational Services. She's our Educational Services consultant. So let me go over some history. In 2013, teachers from around the district met to discuss standards-aligned report cards for the K through 3rd grade levels. After the report cards were implemented, the new ELA frameworks were adopted, and Amador County Public Schools adopted Benchmark Advance as their English language arts curriculum. We have had professional development in the area of balanced literacy, gradual release of responsibility, and transfer. As such, it became apparent that new standards-aligned report cards were necessary to align with our work. So the process was initiated in November, and correspondence was sent to every elementary teacher and administrator in the district, asking for volunteers to be part of our report card committee. 15 brave souls answered the call, and our first 3-hour meeting commenced on January 3rd. And the work began. At this initial meeting, our purpose was established. It wasn't to merely come up with report cards, but for all members of the team to participate in and provide professional learning in the areas of growth mindset, frameworks, formative and interim assessments, and communication with parents. We established a vision for 21st century progress reporting. We developed support tools with the help of the ILT. We drafted grade level report cards and initiated a launch pilot with support and professional development. That this is what will be happening. We developed and implemented feedback loops during the pilot, and we will revise and implement a final report card. The team took this challenge on with careful intent and was mindful of their purpose every step of the process. One of my main goals was to establish a group environment where all members felt safe to share opinions and thoughts freely. In my experience, this atmosphere promotes healthy collaboration, an abundance of productivity, and the sense that each member is validated and appreciated for their efforts. The foundation was to, as a group, establish norms. Before every meeting, the team revisited the norms so that they were ever present in our decision-making. These norms preserve the integrity of the team throughout the process. One of the first tasks of the team was to participate in professional learning. Together, we read How Children Succeed by Paul Tuff, that gives case studies of how grit, perseverance, and curiosity play a role in successful students. We also read Mindset from the brilliant mind of Dr. Carol S. Dweck. This professional reading was centered in the ideal of growth mindset. As a team, we were able to self-reflect about our own mindsets and ultimately how growth mindset can positively affect students and their ability to embrace challenges, persevere, see effort as a path to mastery, and to find lessons and inspiration in the success of others. We also delved deeply into the ELA, ELD, math, next generation science standards, and history social science standards frameworks. So the first step after that, after we started our professional learning, was to gather feedback. And so I sent with the help of the report card committee, we came up with a survey that was carefully worded. And that survey was sent to all teachers. All elementary teachers. And we had 56 responses. There were some themes as we met to discuss. There were themes that we gathered from that survey, and they were that teachers felt it was really important, as we're talking about reporting progress to parents, that the wording was parent-friendly, teacher-friendly, and that there was consistency across the district, and that it addressed effort and responsibility of learning, as noted in the successful practices portion of the report card. So, these themes drove the process in which we constructed our report cards. Then the work ensued. We have met now, this slide is actually outdated, we have now met 13 times. We've had 13 3-hour meetings between January and May. In that time, we looked at survey data, we did our book study, we delved deeply into the frameworks and standards, we looked at ed code and law, and we also looked at sample report cards from other districts, sample standards aligned report cards from other districts. And the end result was that we were able to develop grades TK through 6th grade standards aligned report cards. Now I want to notate as we're taking a look, this is just the front of these beautifully constructed report cards. And I say beautifully because we have our report card committee here. We have a couple members of our report card committee that were in charge of the formatting, and that was Erica Cantac and Lisa Farwig, who did some extra work making them look so nice. So we have 6 all the way down. And I just want to note that TK and K are 2 separate report cards. 2 separate report cards. And these are a living document right now. So next year we are considering a pilot process. And so we constructed these report cards. And then on May 1st, we sent all report cards, TK through 6, to every elementary teacher and let them look at them for a few days, and administrator. And then we constructed another survey to ask them for their input. And from that, gathered more feedback. And in the process of that, I got a lot of questions, specifically from special education teachers. So I also I invited all elementary special education teachers to a meeting. Mitzi assisted with help. She's the law brain when it comes to special education and reporting progress to parents. And I went through the process with them of telling me some positives they saw in the report card, some things that they thought we needed to probably work on, and some things that they had questions on still, and gathered that feedback, and I was able to report it out to our report card committee to help drive how we made revisions to our report card as well. So next steps. An assessment committee will convene over the summer to talk about assessments that are aligned to the report cards. 18-19, like I said, is a pilot year. We will send out surveys to all stakeholders. That's teachers, administrators, and parents. And gather feedback. Our wonderful report card committee will reconvene next year. We will take a look at the data and make some final revisions, and we will have a final report card by the end of 2019. I would be happy to take any questions or comments.
Do we have any questions or comments? Looks like Bob does.
Of course. Looking at the slide with report cards on it.
Yes.
Obviously, I can't read it.
I have copies for you if you would like copies.
That would be great.
Okay.
What sort of markings go on them? Is it like excellent, satisfactory? Is it?
So we decided on a 1 through 4. Thank you.
There we go. That helps a lot.
Yes. And so with these report cards, there's also some grading rubrics in them. They're not complete, though. We still have some more grading rubrics to do. So you can see there's a key at the top that has a academic marks 1, 2, 3, and 4 with plus and minuses and what those mean as far as what does a 4 mean. And so we will have accompanying rubrics that will talk about what a 4 actually means as associated with the standard. That answer your question? Okay, good.
We did also receive this by email.
Okay.
So we've all had a chance to look at it.
Were amazing. So when I'm super impressed with all the work and all the hours that you guys have put into this, and it shows they really are amazing. So I'm excited for the pilot to see how this all works its way out.
Thank you.
Yeah, and speaking retrospectively, we've worked for years to try and get consistent report cards across the district, and for some reason it just could never happen, and it's just like a miracle that happened in this year. And thanks so much to everybody on the committee for doing such great work. It's just, wow, so great.
Giving you all the credit.
No, I am not. No. I cracked a whip, but I didn't do too much other than
No, it's so awesome. Thank you so much.
No,
for your guys' hard work.
it is an amazing effort by 15 individuals. I was just there for the ride, so it was a collective effort for sure.
And I just want to add, too, that I'm so happy about the growth mindset piece, and I'm hoping that maybe in the near future that we can have a little a mini lesson on growth mindset for the board.
Oh, we're going to get into growth mindset next year for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, I love it.
I would just like to jump in and make a quick comment and add to the commendations. Michelle and the entire team worked so hard and so collaboratively. I had the opportunity to drop in on them several times, not as often as I would have liked to, but several times. And they just worked so well together. There were moments of controversy. There were moments of, wondering and questions and thinking about, how are our peers, how are all the rest of the teachers out there going to think about what we're considering and what we're entertaining. And they were just incredibly professional and thoughtful and careful about every determination, every decision that was being made. And I got to be briefed, behind the scenes by both Michelle and Sue. And I cannot compliment this team enough for the tremendous work that you've done. In moving forward, it's going to make such a huge difference for all of our teachers and for all of our students and for our families, because this tool is going to be not just a report card, but a useful communication piece for parents, and also a useful piece for helping to plan lessons and craft instruction and moving forward. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, then we'll flip back to 14.2 LCAP annual update. Mr. Snyder.
Thank you, President Susan, board members, and Superintendent Slavensky. So, it's my pleasure to present to you our Local Control Accountability Plan, or LCAP, annual update. So what I'll do tonight is just give you an overview of what we accomplished this year. At the end of last school year, the LCAP you approved set out to achieve some actions and services and some metrics around those. So today we'll just kind of take a look at what we were able to do and what was not able to be done, and then next steps moving forward. So the first thing we'll do is, again, revisit the strategic plan and LCAP alignment, which we do a lot, but it's important that we just look at how all of our work is intertwined. We'll talk about the 17-18 actions and services accomplished and ongoing, and then also actions and services not accomplished. We'll talk about the metrics that were set and where we're at on those, and then we'll look at some next steps with our LCAP revisions, and then we'll have some questions and discussion. So this first slide probably looks familiar, but again, I think it's important just to reframe the whole conversation about our little pyramid here, where we have our strategic plan, which is the overarching document for our vision, our goals, our mission, and where we're heading. Underneath the strategic plan falls the LCAP, and then underneath our LCAP falls all of our school, single plans for student achievement at the schools. So those align with the LCAP, which aligns with the strategic plan. And this little graphic over here just shows how everything should be moving in the same direction. So the big arrow at the top has our LCAP Goal 1 and Goal 2. Again, Goal 1 is our academic goal, and Goal 2 is the social emotional. And then underneath those two things fall all of the actions and services in the LCAP, all the things going on at the sites. These are just a few examples: MTSS, data cycles, professional learning cycles, all of our cohorts, our site-based professional development, AVID. All of that just falls under the big umbrella of our LCAP goals and, of course, ultimately the strategic plan. So just to quickly revisit, this is Goal 1, and it is, again, this is a 3-year goal, so our LCAP is a 2017 through 2020 document. LCAPs in the state of California are 3-year documents, so last year this was the first goal that was approved, and this is really around academics, all encompassing of academics, college readiness, career readiness, all of the academic side, career technical education, and how students will advance along multiple academic measures towards that, meeting and exceeding that, as well as us closing the achievement gap. So under each of our 2 goals, we have 4 specific action items, and then under each action item are actions and services to achieve that specific action item. So I think it's important to note before we talk about each goal and action item, overall, there were 58 actions and services between the 2 goals and all the actions, and we were able to achieve 52 of the 58 overall. So that's a lot of work that was done. So Goal 1, Action 1 is really around our robust standards-aligned professional development and professional learning. And so I'm not going to read every single one of these for you, but you know, we in this area to support and assist that professional development and professional learning, we have our teachers on special assignment, all the cohort professional development at the secondary level, site-based at the elementary level, lots of coaching going on there, our instructional leadership team, the work the instructional coaches did, the ELA, ELD textbook adoption, and the professional learning that went along with that. So certainly lots, and those were all the specific actions and services listed under Goal 1, Action 1 in the LCAP. Lots of things accomplished there. Goal 1, Action 2 is specific to our English learner support and how are we meeting the needs of our English learners. Again, that's a state priority, so just a quick refresher on LCAP. We have 10 state priorities we must address, so Goal 2 addresses the state priority around English learners. And we accomplished all 3 areas under Action 2, which was the continuing services of our EL aides that help meet the needs of our English learner students. A new action this year was our English learner homeschool liaison. I don't know if you've had a chance to meet Gladys Bell yet, but she is amazing. The work she has done to engage our families of our English learners is just remarkable in the progress she's made in just even less than a year. And so that's been a huge boost to that area. And then our ELD supplemental materials, those came as part of our ELA adoption with Benchmark, the new ELA curriculum, and secondary sites are using some additional supports as well, specifically at Argonaut. Goal 1, Action 3 is really around multi-tiered systems of support, MTSS. That's kind of the overarching area for that one. And under that goal, items accomplished, Director of Student Services position was added this year. Our MTSS cohort and professional development, we actually were successful in receiving the grant from the state of California for $50,000, which helped get the cohort running along. We started a cohort last July, and then that work has amplified throughout this spring as we participated in professional learning through the grant we received. Data systems and cycles, and Illuminate is part of that whole MTSS process and cycle and having the data to look at. And Goal 1, Action 4 is around continuous improvement cycles and around equitable access to rigorous coursework. So again, under this instructional leadership team training, the principal coaching, teacher professional development, you see some of the same actions and services maybe under different action items, but they really do work toward multiple goals. So you think about professional development, well, that's going to help us make sure our students have equitable access to rigorous coursework. Also under here, some of the big additions for this year were the Naviance College and Career Readiness Solution, which helps students map out a path. We had a presentation on that a while back. And then the Edgenuity as well allowed the access to online blended learning solutions, which are A through G compliant. So again, access to the equitable access to rigorous courses. So now just a quick refresher. This is our LCAP Goal 2, and this is really around the social emotional. Students will show an increase in positive school engagement and connectedness with staff, peers, and community, and demonstrating improvement in social, emotional, and physical health. And that's obviously really closely tied to the wellness plan that we presented and approved at the last meeting. So Goal 2 Action 1 is around a college-going and career culture on every school campus, both career and college. And so the AVID program is directly tied to that, that culture, the college-going culture, really specifically with AVID. Web and Link Crew are wonderful programs that help with the students feeling connected to their schools, both at the middle school level and high school level. Our CTE courses being A through G compliant was a huge emphasis this year, and that ties directly to the presentation Kelly Hunkins did last meeting around the pathways and all of that. So certainly, and we actually far exceeded the number of CTE courses we had set out to get A through G compliant. They're actually all, I believe they're all compliant at this point, or we may have a few coming next meeting for request. But I think the goal was 2 courses being A through G, and that was blown out of the water. And then the high school graduation requirements planning and implementation year 1. So they began with professional learning again, and that was tied to what Kelly Hunkins presented last time, and that will be ongoing into next school year. Goal 2 Action 2 is really around parent engagement. Again, a state priority is how do we engage the families and parents of our schools. So we have, family nights at the schools, family resource centers at some sites. That was a partially accomplished goal. We didn't get every single site with one, but we were able to get them at, I think, about close to half of our elementary sites for sure. School site councils, parent-teacher organizations, Amateur Community University was one area that we did as an outreach to engage our families and parents. Our Amateur Parent Advisory Committee, and then our newly, well, not so new anymore, but the Superintendent's Advisory Advocacy Leadership Team is another way that we're engaging our parents and guardians. Action 3 is more around student engagement and safe, inclusive school climate. And so the counselors, the addition of 2 school counselors were under Goal 2 Action 3. Mindfulness, PBIS, we included restorative justice as an accomplished action and service, even though it's happening on June 8th. We included it as accomplished because this is an end-of-year report, so we can safely say it will be accomplished. Our district professional development is there again. Safe and Civil Schools is a program at the junior high level around safe and inclusive school cultures, student leadership, the trauma-informed practices training many staff members attended, all fall under Goal 2 Action 3. And Goal 2 Action 4 is our supports for foster youth. Again, one of our state priorities on the county office side, one of the 2 state priorities for county offices of education. So all of those different supports or actions and services were accomplished for our foster youth, and that really is Regina Helmer doing the majority of that work, working with child welfare services, coordinating services through the Executive Advisory Council, and that consists of many different community agencies working together to support our foster youth. So now we'll talk about what we were not able to accomplish. And actually under Goal 1, all 4 of the actions, there was just one thing that we're saying we didn't accomplish. And I don't think it's completely fair to say we didn't accomplish it because classified staff did receive some professional development. They were attending the things on the minimum days. I think the spirit of this, however, was a separate strand of professional learning for our classified staff. So I don't feel comfortable saying we met that. We partially did provide it. However, I'm pleased to report I've been meeting with Debbie Lassich and Teresa Kramer for the last couple of months to launch this for the 18-19 school year, and we just received confirmation this week that we have a trainer from CSEA to come and present. So we're really excited about a separate strand dedicated just to our classified staff for next year. Goal 2, a few items that were not accomplished. The first one is the social emotional curriculum pilot. And at the end of last year, it was put into the LCAP that the goal would be to have elementary teachers pilot a social emotional curriculum. And then when the benchmark ELA adoption came into play, it was quite a daunting task and a lot of new learning for teachers to implement a whole new ELA ELD curriculum. And capacity was kind of at its max, so we decided the timing wasn't right to try to add one more thing. And so this is slated for next year, and there's a great deal of interest in this. And toward the end of the year, as people became more comfortable with benchmark, they started asking more about materials and what can I use. So we're looking forward to that for next year. The social work positions were not able to be filled. Availability of candidates was the main problem there. The security camera upgrades. There are some other related facility improvements being made, and this is scheduled for 2018-19, really outside of the LCAP process. It would be hard to say LCAP dollars. We would see improved student outcomes through security cameras, but there are plans to accomplish that outside of the LCAP process. School ambassadors is another junior high level behavioral type program similar to positive behaviors interventions and supports. They had professional learning and had the CHAMPS portion of the Safe and Civil Schools implemented this year, and so the school ambassadors would have been another thing on top of that, and they kind of overlap. And so they determined that CHAMPS was really the direction they wanted to go, so that really just wasn't implemented due to really not a need as well as not another thing on top of what they were already doing. And then breaking down the walls is a specific program. It's and we didn't accomplish that because of feedback that we had it about 4 years in a row, I think, 3 or 4 years in a row, and the impact wasn't there the way it had been when you don't do it every 4 years. So the decision was made based on that feedback to bring in the Kevin Bracey assemblies instead. Similar message, but a different presenter, and it was very well received, but because of that, we can't say that we accomplished breaking down the walls, but we did something similar. So now we'll just talk briefly about the metrics. So part of your LCAP is that you set goals that are measurable, and those consist of our CASP scores, are kind of one of the big ones, our year-end testing scores, A through G completion rate, AP pass rate, CTE completion, our California Healthy Kids Survey, suspension rate, chronic absenteeism. That data is not available yet. That data won't be available until school's out, and we can run preliminary reports from our data systems. The real data won't be out until we have the release of the California School Dashboard in the fall. So we'll have some preliminary information, and I will be coming back to the board to let you know how we did on those metrics when we have the data. But it's hard when your LCAPs have to be, presented by June 13th, and school just ends June 1st to have all that in place, because really it's not ultimately out until the dashboard comes in the fall. So we feel like, our 3-year trend shows increase in our CASP scores. Last year we saw increase in ELA and math, and we feel confident that will continue. I just can't stand here and show you exactly what it was at this point. So our next steps with the LCAP process is continuing the 18-19 development and revisions, and we heard Mr. Denny speak earlier about his involvement on the committee, and he's exactly right. That's kind of the process we've gone through. We are going to actually schedule one additional meeting with our advisory committee, and we're working on final revisions to be able to bring to you on June 13th for first reading and public hearing, the revised LCAP. And we are going to propose just a few little revisions because, again, these are 3-year plans, and at the end of last year, they set goals for this year, next year, and even the year after that. So you kind of look at your data and revise as necessary. So we'll bring that June 13th. And then June 27th is the second reading and hopeful approval of the revised LCAP along with the district budget. So at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sean. That was a great presentation. Bob?
Yeah, I've got about a half dozen questions. The first one is a really basic question. For the 3-year plan, is it a rolling 3-year plan so that we've always got 3 years worth of plan, or do we have 3 years of plan and then we have to start from scratch?
It is actually, you do your 3 years and then you kind of start the whole process over again. You can revise within your 3-year plan, obviously, which is what we're doing now, but I believe that at the end of that 3 years, you kind of go through the whole redevelopment process and you know, kind of tearing it all apart and starting from scratch. So
that was the impression I had, even though I think 3-year rolling would have been better. But, you know, it's state mandated. We do it their way.
Yes.
I've got my note on Goal 1, Action 1 slide, but in visiting schools in the last couple of weeks, I've had a number of questions about professional development for science and math areas. The feeling is that there's been a lot of professional development for the humanities side of things or the social sciences side of things, but not the hard sciences. So that's a concern that's been expressed to me, and that kind of seems to fall under the academic goal that maybe we're falling behind in that area a little bit. And the concern is especially for the math, where we adopted new materials just a couple of years ago, and they feel like they're only using them. The phrase that was used was 25% of them rather than 100% of them.
So yeah, there's actually, that's a timely question and a good question. So through our cohorts, our NGSS cohort, Next Generation Science Standards cohort, they have a plan to roll out a pretty robust line of professional learning for our teachers next school year around the standards and, you know, ensuing materials adoptions. So that is in their cohort proposal, and one of the, you know, recommendations from the advisory committee is to continue to fund those cohorts. So with that funding, they'll be able to roll out that professional learning series for our teachers. And around the math, our data certainly indicates a need for additional emphasis in math, and so I think you'll probably see that coming in the proposed revision as well on June 13th. More of an emphasis on the math area.
Okay. I think it's going to be important to communicate that to the math and science teachers soon. The grumblings from a couple of them are kind of pretty severe. For the Navient thing, did you guys say that you looked at it and then they took it away for a while or something? I'm kind of vaguely remembering that you looked at it, or... Okay.
I went to one of the trainings, but I know like that there's certain classes I would be using.
Okay, so is it being actively used in the classroom?
It is being used. Kelly Hunkins is our expert in the Naviance, and this was year 1 of our rollout. And so, I mean, it is a grade 6 through 12 program. And I just heard her earlier this week talking about the plan next year, starting with 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. It was actually, I think, in a meeting today that the data that program will be able to generate for our local community around tracking students after they leave school and how many students went on to college, how many left after a year, how many went back, what industries they're going into, what majors they're declaring. Is that accurate, Superintendent Slavinsky?
Right, yes, we were in a meeting together and we heard Kelly giving us an update around that. So Naviance, Edgenuity, 2 different tools, 2 different purposes. I think, Bob, you were asking about the Naviance tool, and that is very robust. The board saw a presentation on that earlier this year that gives students, teachers, families at their fingertips access to virtual tours of campuses, career, college planning templates and tools to help them think ahead, plan ahead, career as well. And so one of the recommendations that I heard from Kelly the other day was, as high schools are working on finalizing their master schedules for next year. They're looking at where they can embed Naviance, use of Naviance as a tool in courses that all students take, so that all students have access to it and are using it or being taught how to use it every year throughout the year. So I don't know, I don't think they have a final decision or recommendation on that yet, but I heard them talking about possibly in English classes, since all students take English every year, all 4 years.
I know at the junior high level, it's built into the AVID program. It's just a natural use for it there. And really, it ramps up. So junior high, 6th, 7th grade students access it 2 to 4 times because they're taking an interest inventory, and so it's not something that you go in and utilize on a weekly basis. It's more a tool. And then as you get closer into your freshman and sophomore year, your usage of it does ramp up a little bit. So,
And if it's okay if I add, having 2 freshmen at Argonaut this year, they actually had a class specific for freshmen that I think the majority of freshmen had to take, and the first half of that was all on Naviance. Yep.
Great, okay.
Thank you, Kendi. Thank your kids for reporting.
Yeah.
Nice to have spies in the classroom.
Yeah, right.
Okay, the next thing might actually be a question for Amy, but since you're standing in front of the microphone, it's going to go to you. I've had a couple of parents ask me how to get more involved in the district committees, the SALT and the Parent Advisory Committee, how they can get involved in those. Who do they contact? What's the process?
That's a great question. SALT, just to clarify, Superintendent's Advocacy Leadership Team, just started this past March. It's brand new. The group convened and met once each month, March, April, May. They determined the topics. Staff brought reports and updates. There was a high level of interaction and conversation around each of those topics. And the group was comprised by sending out first an invitation to the members of last year's strategic planning team, because that was a very broad-based stakeholder group. And then after that, it was sent out broadly to all. And so then pretty much anyone who expressed interest was invited to join and be a part of that. So in moving forward, if anyone is still interested and wants to come on board for next year, they can just call my office at 257-5353, and we would love to have as many people be involved as possible. And then the other group that you talked about, I think, was what we refer to as APAC, Amador Parent Advisory Committee. So there are 2 that serve a similar purpose. APAC is more focused on curriculum and instruction. SALT is more focused on, it's more broad-based, any and all issues, topics that our stakeholders may want to learn more about and talk more about. And so SALT would run through my office, and APAC would run through Sean's office.
APAC actually, and I don't think it's different this year, but they, the principals of each school generally choose 2 parents that represent that school. So then, I don't know if that fluctuates. I know for, because this is new, I mean, in previous years with the Parent Advisory Committee, usually the same parent will stay on as long as their student is in that school. So I know that for this year that APAC, that was kind of how it was chosen also. The principal chooses 2 from
But Candy, certainly if a parent were interested, he or she could approach the principal and indicate their interest.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely. We wouldn't turn anyone away, but you're exactly right. Thank you. That's what I was going to say. Each site chooses 2 representatives. If someone wants to join us, we'd be more than happy to have them.
Okay, so talk to their principal, and if the 2 seats were already occupied, call your office.
Give me a call, yes, definitely.
Okay, great. On the counselors, you said 2 were added. Was that the full amount that we had hoped to add from the LCAP? Obviously, I don't have last year's LCAP in front of me.
For this year, yes, it called for 2 additional for 17-18, and then, actually in there already for next year, we're 2 more on top of that. And so, and as Mr. Denny said, that was the number 1 priority of the advisory committee. So,
I see that it's still a pretty desperate need. So,
yes.
And that ties in very much to my next question on the social workers, which would have partially relieved that need possibly. Are we setting the requirements for the social worker position appropriate for the amount that we're able to pay for the social worker position. It seems like if we were setting them consistently with each other, we'd be more likely to get applicants, and if the salary is low for the expectations, then we'd be less likely.
Sure, yeah, I think that's a very good question. In looking at it, I believe they were advertised, it was a school community worker, not actually called a social worker, school and community worker, and the description of the job was similar to what a social worker would do. However, it was a classified position, so that could be part of the challenge in finding applicants.
So we've had some preliminary conversations about that in moving forward and trying to determine what the recommendation might be for this next year. Sean, I can't recall, though, did it come up through the advisory committee? Was there discussion there?
We did have some discussion on it there. On a related note, I was actually in a meeting today with our community agencies, Behavioral Health and Mental Health Services Act, and we had a long conversation about possibly partnering with a community agency in utilizing social workers to help fill some of our needs. And I actually didn't, there was an email about a home visit program that I received from one of those agencies just this evening. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. So there's a lot of, we're really trying to partner with our agencies also to help maybe fill some of those voids that we might not be able to. So
that makes sense. Yeah, when I hear social worker, I think LCSW, and I think that's a tier above, or maybe several tiers above where we're looking for a social worker. So
I think the position title social worker is a misnomer, and Sean's exactly right. It was a school community worker, and I recall last year when we were in the preliminary stages of this work, there was some research and some examination of job descriptions in other school districts around and the various different titles and classifications of those positions. And so this one was not so much social worker, but school community worker with roles and responsibilities that would be appropriate for that title and for the compensation that goes with it.
Hey,
I just heard a volunteer next to me. Janet just said she wants to come out of retirement and do that.
Wonderful.
Great.
It is, and yeah.
Okay, any more questions for Sean? Comments? This was a great and timely update. So thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, 14.4 facilities update, Mr. Critchfield.
Thank you, President Susan and board members. I would like to update you tonight on 3 different facilities projects going on. The Argonaut High School track, the Argonaut High School Culinary Arts Room, and then also the Upterra, especially focused on the solar portion of the project at Amador High School. I have a few pictures to show you to get started, and then at the end I have some timelines that actually have dates on them too. So I think you might get, I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah, real dates on the calendar, not like months or years. So first of all, the Argonaut High School track, they have done a ton of work. This crew, since arriving, has worked very swiftly to go through the process, and as we know, the board approved it in 2 different phases, and so now that all portions of the project have been approved, they're moving forward. If you look at the pictures, when you look down at the track, I think right now a lot of people may say, okay, it looks like they put curbs in, but what else have they done? This is really, when you look at it, it's the foundation and the groundwork for the entire project. I mean, the level of precision is pretty incredible. The inner curb, if you notice in that top left picture, has a drain all the way around it. So there's that slot drain, and so it's a much wider curb than a normal curb would be. In order for that to drain properly, the outer curb is, I believe they told me, 25, 30 seconds of an inch higher than the inner curb. So the precision is, it's pretty high. And so that way, any water that hits the track would drain inward. You wouldn't really be able to tell that when walking on it, but there's a slight, it's a 1% grade from the outer to the inner curb. And so getting all of that right
is extremely important for drainage and longevity and everything else. And so as you can see, the inner curb's in. Some of these other pictures, you can see how the curbing's gone in. It was, I went there in the evening the other day, so the angle of the sun was not great, but the posts have also been installed on the outside curbing in those areas outside the bowl, and as you know, once it hits the bowl, the fence will then come up and be around the outer edge. So they've installed those posts as well. And so anyways, just making great progress, and I will talk more about the timeline in a later slide. On the Argonaut High Culinary Arts Room, there have been many changes needed and many things that have gone on to make sure this project has been done correctly. As you can see, the hood vents have been installed. The HVAC unit, I did not provide pictures of that, but the HVAC unit that was on the roof had to be removed with the crane, and it created a 7 by 15 foot hole in the roof that needed to be then repaired, and all the proper ventilation for the new ventilation put in. And so a lot of the groundwork has been laid for that project as well, and it is moving along. Lastly, the Amador High Solar project in the stadium is moving along well. I actually went back and took another picture today because I heard more panels were in, because I wanted more panels on the picture. So this was taken about 1 o'clock this afternoon to make sure we gave enough credit to what's going on. This is quite the daunting structure. It sits pretty low to the ground when you're up top, like we talked about before. You can see those in the far right picture. You can see those vehicles up there. You can still get an unobstructed view down to the track in the field, which is what we had hoped for. People have asked if those are reflective and if they will cause any difficulty. We set them up. They reflect perfectly on the visitor sideline. So anyways, that was very strategic. But no, they will not reflect that direction, so there's nothing to worry about there. We also heard that people thought we were putting in more bleachers, but they're not bleachers as well. So it's fun when construction happens. People think a lot of different things are going on. So anyways, those projects are all moving along. I wanted to give you the visuals before I talked about timelines. So first we'll go back to the track, and I can talk to you about the timeline there. Right now, all curbing is set to be completed by the end of this week. They will put gravel base down and install that early next week, and then they will be off of it for graduation preparation. I've spoken to Principal Troy Gasway many times. Also, one of our wonderful employees, Adam Thompson, you may know him. We've met a few times down there as well to make sure that everything will be ready for graduation, and we have a good plan in place. I won't go into all those details, but we're making sure that they will be off. The crew will take the last 3 days of the week off. They won't be on it Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday to ensure that we can have everything prepped for graduation. They will then return the Monday after graduation, June 4th, to see what damage has been done by the thousands of people that convene on the location for graduation, and do any final preparations for paving. And then on Tuesday, June 5th and Wednesday, June 6th, the paving company will arrive to pave for the track. It then needs about a month to cure. Asphalt cures pretty quickly to be able to drive on and walk on, but it really has to do with getting the rubber surface to adhere well to the asphalt. And obviously with a lot of trial and error, and this company has a lot of experience, if the asphalt sits for 20 to 30 days, that's actually the best way to do it, to make sure that when the rubber surface is sprayed down, it adheres, because I would prefer that this track last a long time. So right now we are set to pave at the beginning of June, and then at the beginning of July, they would come out to spray the rubber surface. That needs just a couple of days to dry, and then they would paint all the lane lines and everything else and be completed in mid-July. For the Argonaut High Culinary Room, plumbing and electrical upgrades are complete. I also mentioned the hood vents, ventilation, HVAC unit's been removed. The floor installation, we are hoping to bring at the June 13th board meeting a proposal for a piggyback bid for flooring that would do an epoxy floor that would go 6 inches up the walls as well. That would be industrial grade, that would last for a very long time, and then hope to have that floor installed mid-June. We've ordered all the equipment. There are actually 2 storage containers just outside the culinary room on campus. Lauren's probably seen them. They're full of of the equipment that will be put in there. And again, we're hoping to complete that project in mid-July and have it up and running for the start of the 18-19 school year. For the solar project, the Argonaut High solar field, that is the one level with the softball field behind the football stadium, soccer stadium, that was cleared for operation by the Jackson Fire Department yesterday. Optera needed to clean the weeds around it and do the abatement necessary for that. And PG&E should be giving us the permission to operate by the end of next week, and then that solar structure will be online and will begin to recoup the financial benefits from having that online. For the Amador High Stadium solar array, they are moving along very quickly. As you notice, the panel installation, they're hoping to be done by the end of the week. By the looks of it, at the speed they were going today, I have no doubt they'll finish the panel installation. There's then a couple weeks worth of electrical work that they then need to do to tie, obviously, all those panels back to the electrical hookups. And then June 8th, we have a scheduled appointment with PG&E for inspection. And then the way the timelines have gone from there, it's typically taken another week or two to then receive the PTO, the permission to operate. So we should see those online in mid to late June.
That's terrific. Questions, anyone? Bob?
Someday I won't have any questions, and you won't know what to do.
True.
Related to the Optera project.
Yes.
Again, as I've been going site to site, I'm hearing a lot of people saying that there are problems with the thermostats.
Yes.
That the sites can't adjust the temperature, that the classroom teachers can't adjust the temperature.
Yes, that has definitely been an issue, and we are working with Eloy to do all the troubleshooting, and then we will be proposing to principals to have some just short, simple trainings and some 1-2 page instructions to help people work through that. The theory, and it's not working perfectly yet, we acknowledge that, is that we would have set points and we would have timers set up so that we're not wasting energy and having either heat or cool air pumping when no one's in the classroom, is that with these set points, if a teacher comes in late at night, on the weekend, whenever, they should be able to override and kick on the AC or the heater. And we know that's not working perfectly. Our principals have done a good job of communicating with us, and Eloy has kind of taken over that and tried to work out all the kinks. And at this point, you know, the goal is to change all the thermostats district-wide. We are not going to push forward with that until we work out all those kinks, because we have enough, we've had enough issues with the ones we have that we don't want to keep adding to that until we feel like we have it figured out. But we will plan on providing more trainings and everything so that they work the way they were intended to.
One issue I have heard from multiple sites is that the new thermostat was placed in a location that gets full afternoon sun.
Yes.
And that distorts its impression of the temperature.
Yes, and that did happen in some of those cases with Optera, and so we are open to either moving thermostats or changing the set points based on the location of the classroom, and that's something that we'll be going through.
We'll build a shade structure around it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay.
So I just wanted to confirm, I know that a concern with the delay in getting Optera completed was that we would not have the use of the solar panels during our hottest and most expensive months over the summer. So based on your report, it sounds like we should be up and running. The whole district should be able to benefit from the solar for the summer months. Is that correct?
Yes. So again, if everything goes as planned, we know that the Argonaut parking lot structure, the canopies, are already up and running. The solar field has gone through that process, and we're just waiting for that last step of the permission to operate, which we're hoping by the end of next week we'll have that. So that will be up and running. And then last is Amador. And like I said, as things continue to move with, you know, as long as they can keep to that appointment on June 8th, the way everything else has gone, that's the big appointment, is are they ready for PG&E when they say they'll be? And right now it looks like they will be. So if that happens on June 8th, the process has been pretty clean once PG&E has arrived. We know we've had issues before that, but so as long as that holds, absolutely, we should have that up and running by mid to late June, and then we will. You know, we're just now starting that time when you're receiving peak benefits. It's basically the way it's been explained to me in simple terms, so I could understand it, was the 6 months kind of around the middle of summer. If you go 3 months before and 3 months after, when the sun is the strongest, is when you actually receive about 75% of the production from the panels. And then those other 6 months, only about 25%. And that's why, you know, I appreciate the board in pushing so hard to get them to move quickly, because that's when we're really, for lack of a better term, that's when we're making our money. It's during the sun. 75% of the production happens during those 6 months. And so we're losing out a little bit on that now. But we're, you know, if we're operable in early to mid-June, I mean, we still have those hot months of July and August and even September and October when production is still high.
Great, so that'll actually have an effect on our budget because we didn't budget for those months, is that correct?
Absolutely, and I'm working with Eloy on that to make sure our numbers are accurate when we bring the budget at the next board meeting. The plan is to have those in there, and then by the June 27th board meeting, when they're finalized, we should know and feel confident about having those in the budget, or if we need to pull back Amadors for a little bit, you know, because maybe it's still a couple weeks away. We hope it's not. We'll have that information, but we can factor those things in for budget.
And the last question I have is, you mentioned Optera responsible for putting the thermostats in areas that have a lot of sun. I thought that did we just ask for specific thermostats that Optera was going to install? Because I thought we were installing the thermostats based on the finding by Eloy.
So the agreement was the thermostats, we ended up procuring the thermostats, but the way the agreement worked in the contract was they were to install the thermostats on the HVAC units that they replaced. So the 87 units, and that's what Bob was referring to, the 87 units that were replaced district-wide had the thermostats installed by Optera. But now, in working with Eloy, we are working through the troubleshooting and making sure that that works, so that then moving forward, the hope would be in working with Eloy as a district, we, outside of the Optera project, replace thermostats district-wide.
Will it be the some of the money that we recaptured from Optera to make that happen?
Yes, that's the goal.
Right. Yes, go ahead, Lauren.
So I know that it's been said before, but I don't remember off the top of my head. What was like the percent that would be like, how much energy would end up using from the solar? Because I remember it wasn't like 100% covered.
No, and they typically don't go all the way to 100% coverage. The projections are 80 to 90%, and that would be for the Argonaut High canopies in the parking lot, 80 to 90% of what Argonaut High uses in utilities. And then the two Amador High structures, those are all to help Amador High. And when I say Amador High, I also mean Sutter Creek Elementary, upper campus, because that's part of that campus. So the combination of those two schools, you know, we have almost 1,000 students. And so the power usage is the largest in the district. And so all of that solar is dedicated to offset 80 to 90%. The solar field at Argonaut in the back, that goes back to the grid in the form of credits towards our other utilities district-wide, and the goal there was a 50 to 60% offset of all of our other sites district-wide. Does that make sense? So basically, to summarize it, 80 to 90% at our high schools are covered, and then 50 to 60% of everything else. We only brought it up once, Lauren, so it's okay that you didn't remember that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Do you have any more questions? Bob, do you have something else?
I have one more question. While we're doing all this messing with HVAC, can a vent be punched into the principal's office at Pine Grove so that she has actual heating and cooling in her office?
Sure, I can look into that. Absolutely.
It seems to make sense while we're doing all this stuff. But
I gave her one of those little handheld fans, but
yeah.
We'll look into doing more.
That doesn't work very well in December.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Richfield. Okay, 14.5, report from superintendent.
Yes, I just have 4 quick things that I would like to mention, and I suspect that some of you will be mentioning this as well, so I won't go into detail. But I just want to call out the significant event that happened this week on Monday and Tuesday at Argonaut and Amador, involving all of our 9 through 12 students across the district, and that's the Every 15 Minutes program. I had the opportunity to be there both days and witness this and observe our students and their reactions and responses to the events. And it was tough. You know, it was powerful, it was poignant, it was tough. I needed Kleenex because you can't help but personalize the experience to your own life, your own children, which I did. But I'm very grateful for the partnerships that allowed this to happen. Sean was actively involved on the planning team representing our school system, and there were many, many other agencies involved as well. And I just want to publicly say that I'm enormously appreciative that this was able to happen and that our students were a part of this and received this really important message. Second, I just wanted to reinforce what Susan said at the very beginning of the meeting about this being Classified Employees Appreciation Day and Week. The board did call out and approve that resolution at the May 9th meeting, but I just would be remiss if I let it go by without expressing how very, very much we appreciate all of our classified employees. We heard information tonight about transportation, facilities improvements, instructional work. All of that and more is supported by our classified employees. And I just heard right before this meeting started tonight, I think it's correct, all of our classified employees were treated by a free lunch, Subway sandwiches provided by their labor leaders, right? That was very exciting. Great move, and just wanted to call that out. And then also we have a very exciting retirement event coming up tomorrow at Argonaut High School. What time, Dave? 3:30 to 4:30, 5 o'clock. Great opportunity to recognize and honor our folks who are retiring. So if anyone wants to join us, please do. And then finally, you approved on the consent agenda tonight the personnel page, as you always do. And I would also like to acknowledge 2 new hires that were on that personnel page. The permanent principal position at Ione Junior High School, Mr. Rich Modesti. So we're very excited about that. And then we've mentioned Kelly Hunkins several times this evening. Earlier this year, she moved from teacher on special assignment secondary to educational options principal, leaving the TOSA position vacant. And Sinead Clement has been selected and hired for that position and moving forward for next year. So we're very excited about those new appointments, new assignments.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on to board reports and remarks from board members. So Lauren, did you have a report or remark?
Yes, I have a couple actually. So on Saturday was Science Saturday at Pine Grove Elementary, and I helped with, I volunteered for AUW because they sponsored me to go to a science and math camp in junior high, and I'll help with different events. And so I got to be there for that, and that was the first time I've ever been there to see it, and it was such a cute little event where there's different booths that all the kids get to go to, and I helped with the geometric toothpicks, so they have marshmallows and they get to make shapes with toothpicks, and that was one of the events that I actually, one of the little activities that I did in junior high at the math camp that I went to. So that was really fun to help. All the kids were super cute, and they seemed to really enjoy the day there, so that was really nice to see. And then I was a part of the Every 15 Minutes program, and I was one of the living dead. And so, I don't know, it was an amazing experience to be a part of. It was really hard-hitting, definitely, being, there to, watch the crash scene and to watch just the impact that it has on the community and this students and all of their words and the parents' words and the speakers. Is definitely a huge event, and it definitely seemed to have a good impact on everyone involved, which I thought was amazing. And then we had our senior trip last Friday, where we went to Six Flags and then a dinner cruise in Berkeley, which I thought it was a really fun trip, but everyone seemed to like it as well. Yeah, and also just thank you for letting me be a part of being a student board throughout the year. It was like definitely a great experience to be a part of. Learned a lot. There's a lot that goes into everything, but it's also fun to get to see everything that's going on with not just Argonaut and just the ASB part of it, but everything from all of the schools was definitely a great thing to be a part of. So thank you for that.
Welcome. Janet?
Well, for me, this month's been a whirlwind. I think I've done and been on more campuses and seen more students in the last few weeks than I have all year, more teachers, more schools. I did scholarship night at Amador High. I am so proud of the kids in our village and what we're producing here. I went to open house at Pioneer Elementary. I want to go up there and be a kid when it's snowing up there. They have a great campus, wonderful staff. I'm just so grateful for the people who work for our district. I did a boardwalk at Plymouth Elementary. I've always called it the best kept secret in Amador County. Beautiful campus, beautiful instructions, happy kids. Went to Shenandoah Charter School. They did a spaghetti fundraiser that apparently I did not know, but I actually had a person call me to thank me because apparently my youngest granddaughter organized it. And the FFA year-end banquet at the fairgrounds, I attended that. I have a granddaughter who's graduating and has been active in FFA. She was here tonight to receive her keychains, which she got finally. Culminating with every 15 minutes because our family has been personally affected by a drunk driver. Carson's parents, Carson was one of the Walking Dead, which her parents had a really hard time doing, so I stepped in as grandma. And profound program. We need to do this every few years. I've cried with kids. I've laughed with kids the last couple days. I watched the unity of our schools, Argonaut and Amador, we're rivals. And Independence, who do we know who they are? Those kids all sat together and became one. Went with parents then to the parents' presentation while our children, our poor children who had their cell phones taken away for 24 hours were receiving counseling and being talked to about the program. Back the next day, and I love the fact, I don't know who was responsible for the food trucks. That was the best fun I've ever seen. They go
Probation department.
Was it probation did that? It was it was the most awesome thing because these kids had gone through a mock trial. Their friends came back. There was Judge Day was there. Our young Vanessa played the lead in this. She was the drunk driver who was convicted and sentenced to prison. These kids were touched by this, as were their parents and stuff. And then at the end, after all the sadness of a funeral, of everything going on, they go outside. Here's all these food trucks. Here is unity, and all the kids, their parents and everyone ate together. And I mean, these kids are still crying, and some of them are still affected. I did not see one child that thought it was a joke. And I'm appreciative that our district did this. But then I went home and I took a nap, and my husband got me to wake me up, and I was late to go to Plymouth's open house, which, but what a great week and experience.
Thank you, Janet. Bob?
Well, I kind of hid from the E15 event. And, I think I made the right call there for me. But I'm still glad that it was available for our kids, and I hope the ones that needed to opt out opted out appropriately. But anyway, I'm really glad that all the various agencies cooperated to make that happen. And it's the most favorable impression I've ever had of our probation department. So I think that was really good. After my comments last time, Amy helped arrange, or I don't know whether she delegated or how this worked. But magic happened, and I got to do lots of site visits in a very short period of time. So I've been to Pine Grove, Shenandoah Valley, Plymouth, the Transportation Department, Jackson Elementary, Independence, Open House, and I have a feeling I was at one other school, but I've lost track. I might very well have dropped by Pioneer for something, without necessarily being a full site visit. So I appreciate being able to do that, and learned a lot. And it's kind of interesting getting it all compressed as opposed to one a month all year. Really condensed. Gave me an opportunity to see patterns like the thermostat issue wasn't just one site, it was spread throughout. And so I spotted patterns, and I saw some contrast between them, and it was really nice. Speaking of thermostats, can some person who has the right connection talk to the people who run this building so we can have air conditioning in here during the summer in the evening? Tonight it was a little warm, and it's going to be warmer by the end of the summer. And we're going to want to start sitting further apart as it gets warmer. The Pioneer cell phone issue has come up a number of times, but there were a couple of things that I was unaware of that I've been made aware of. That even though I have good Verizon cell service there, it's not a 3G or 4G signal, and some of the software that counselors use requires that kind of signal, and our Wi-Fi system apparently cuts them off after 30 minutes. And I understand they've been talking to Scott about that, so apparently I'm misunderstanding what's going on. Because they're using a YouTube video or some such thing. I'm sure Scott has a better idea what I'm talking about than I do.
No, there is no cutoff for the wireless access or the wireless phones for that matter. Wireless phones in the transportation building up in Pioneer, and actually in my office because we're in a spot there at Argonaut. And problems at Argonaut, nor any problems at transportation building, and site techs are up in Pioneer and use that wireless, their wireless phone option, and have seen no issue.
Okay, I will pass the word backwards and.
Bob, I don't know if this helps, but when I was teaching, and maybe, I don't know if it's still the same, but if you wanted to stream something, your time was limited unless you overrode it. So maybe that's the issue.
Yes, we're talking about two different, apparently we're talking about two different situations. If you're talking about cell phones, there is no timeout, so to speak. There is or was for live streaming. And we've actually increased that time limit to be an hour, which is a length of classes, so that they don't get cut off. But in the event that they need longer time, yes, an override is available, and they would need to do that.
Okay. I think that's what's going on, because since there's no 4G signal, they can't stream on their cell phone, so they undoubtedly were connecting to the Wi-Fi using their cell phone. So the device is still a cell phone, but it's using the Wi-Fi connection.
Again, there would be no timeout, because that the way the cell phones operate, I don't want to really get into the whole tech end of it, but they are not subject to the limits speaking about as far as web content is concerned. Okay. Those are two separate transactions, so to speak, independent transactions.
Okay. I will pass the message on and hopefully get you talking more directly so that it's not coming with distorted information.
I think that's the key, just continuing to refer them to the source who can provide the greatest support would be great.
And lastly, I wanted to thank our student board members for all their work, and it was kind of my push that got you here, and I'm glad that I made the effort. You guys have been great.
Thank you, Bob. Rosie?
Okay, I'll try to make this quick. I went to the open houses. I went to Ione Junior and Independent Star, and I was impressed with the hands-on work they did and classes. And Ione Elementary, they're dancing and playing drums on Ace hardware cans, plastic cans, and it was really cool. And then I spent 2 days going to the Amador and Argonaut every 15 minutes. At the funeral at Argonaut, I was very impressed with the speaker, how she could, after losing a son and a daughter, get up there and talk about it. With me losing a son, she's just a strong person. I don't know how she did it. If anyone didn't see the video of the students, you need to, because they did a great job, and I don't think there was a dry eye in the house.
We have the video, and we're getting ready to post it to our ACUSD Facebook page and web page, so that's right around the corner for all to see.
I've had a lot of people ask me how, they could see it. So that's great, I'll tell them.
It's also a great opportunity to give a shout out to our two video technology teachers at the two comprehensive high schools. They just did a tremendous job working collaboratively. Dave Tierpak at Amador High School and Matt King at Argonaut. I ran into Dave last night at Sutter Creek Primary's open house, and he was telling me how fabulous the collaborative opportunity was for the two of them as well, and they had not done that before. So just so many great things came out of it.
Thank you, Rosie. Andy?
So I also attended the every 15 minutes, both days of that. That was really, it had such an impact, I think, on, even adults as well as the students. And it was just amazing to me how much they actually put into that. I mean, not that, when the people leave, if they're being taken away by an ambulance or they're being taken away in the helicopter, you would just think that it would end, but it doesn't. I mean, they go back to the hospital and are recording the whole thing. So really amazing how everyone in the community came together to make that happen. So kudos to everyone who was involved there. Also, I have 3 graduations that I'll be attending this next week. And I just wanted to tell you, Lauren, I'm so proud of you for how well you did in the role as a student board member. We're proud of all of our student board members. I know it's a very difficult task, probably something, well, it had to have been something that no student really knew what to expect because you were the first. But you dedicated your time and you came, and we're here at almost 9:40 on a school night, and you're still here. And really, I mean, you've added so much to this, and so we just really wanted to thank you for everything that you put into this. And I just wanted to remind you guys that I will be via telephone out of the country for the next board.
Okay, thank you, Candy. I also want to thank Lauren and congratulate her on her upcoming graduation. And best luck in college. And I wanted to congratulate Rich Modesti and Sinead Clement also. I've attended also this is getting very redundant, but I've been to Pine Grove Pioneer, Sutter Creek L, Sutter Creek Primary, and the Ice Cream Social in Independence. And every place I went, I saw great teaching, happy teachers, happy kids, loving parents. Every classroom was engaging and bright with evidence of great work. Lots of classrooms had interactive things set up. It was just so cool. I was impressed with all the positive changes that are happening everywhere. I popped in on the SALT meeting, which I think is a great opportunity for community and staff to get together to learn new things and ask questions. Had a lovely boardwalk today at Amador High, where I saw some absolutely amazing teaching. It was so impressive, and some really incredible student art. I just can't get over the talent we have here. Of course, I'm just, repeating, but every 15 minutes was wonderful. And what I appreciated most about it was all community coming together for our kids. And I would really hope that we could continue to access community and community support in all different avenues and all different efforts, because it's so powerful. powerful when community comes together. I just want to say, as we approach the end of this school year, which has been a year of adventure, challenges, and surprises, I want to commend our incredible community and all staff for their hard work, dedication, and support of our precious Amador County students and our Amador schools. Thank you. All right, our next meeting will be Wednesday, June 13th, 2018, in the Administration Building, and I adjourn the meeting. Take a 5-minute recess for the county meeting. Okay, we're ready to call the county office meeting to order. Okay, this is the Amador County Office of Education Board of Trustees. Wednesday, May 23rd. Okay, are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda?
No, there are not.
Okay, are there any public comments? I have no cards. Are there any member of the audience who wishes to speak on items not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, I'm going to move on to the consent agenda, item 6.0. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, second by Rosie. Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, that's 5 and 1, including the advisory vote. Okay, 7.0 discussion action items. 7.1 board policy manual, second reading. Dr. Slavinsky.
This is a continuation from the work that has been going on for the past year or so. I think I explained in our last meeting that we had kind of a staggered effect going on with the first and second reading of the board policy manual. The ACUSD process was one meeting ahead because we had the workshop where a first reading was successfully declared only for the ACUSD. So I would just like to bring this to your attention one last time for this process. The second reading discussion action for the board policy manual for the Amador County Office of Education. And once again, just keeping in mind that most board policies and administrative regs are common for the two entities, with the exception of those related to personnel and some related to governance and business operations, with future recommendations forthcoming in those areas.
Is there any discussion? Questions? Alrighty, then I'll call for the motion.
I move we approve a successful second reading for the board policy manual.
Okay, seconded by Lauren. Okay, I'm asked for the advisory vote. Advisory vote? Yeah? 1. Okay, I'll call for the rest of the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Okay, item 7.2, public hearing for the Special Education Annual Service Budget Plan. Mrs. Faulkner.
The presentation is exactly the same and the information is exactly the same that I presented in the ACUSD presentation.
Okay, so then I will open the public hearing. Public hearing is now open. Anyone wishes to speak to the Special Education Annual Service and Budget Plan? Hearing no one, seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Thank you. Okay, item 9.0, 9.1, report from superintendent.
Thank you very much. A couple of things. I want to just acknowledge and go on record saying how very, very much I appreciate the high level of activity of our board. At the end of the last meeting, you all explained the tremendous amount of visibility and experiences that you've had out in our schools and in our communities. And Susan leaned over to me and said, "This is a very active board." And I said, yes, it is. And that is a very good thing, because what it means is you are dutifully and very well performing your roles and responsibilities as board members for both the ACUSD and the Amador County Office of Education, representing all of our students, listening to our community members. And I genuinely just want you to know how very much I appreciate that. The other thing I wanted to mention is the end-of-year annual LCAP report that Mr. Snyder presented earlier was on the ACUSD agenda. It could easily have been on both agendas as well, but in the interest of time, we just put it on the ACUSD agenda. So I just wanted to call out what I know you already know, and that is we have 10 state-required priorities for the Local Control Accountability Plan, and it's the 9th and 10th priorities that are specific to the County Office of Education, focused on support to ensure success for our expelled youth and our foster youth. And we remain committed to making sure that those priorities get the attention that they deserve. I just did not think it was right to leave that without mentioning it. And then finally, I'm very much looking forward to the upcoming ACOE meetings that we have in June, where the county LCAP will be provided or presented, the county annual budget for 18-19, and then what we haven't seen, at least in my time here, is a new charter review and recommended revisions for Shenandoah Valley Charter School and a charter school LCAP. So very excited about those coming forward as well for your consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any further reports from board members? Just nod yes if you have no. Okay, everybody said their piece. Okay, so the next meeting will be Wednesday, June 13th, 2018, the County Administration Building, and the Amador County Office of Education meeting is now adjourned.